Hey everyone, and welcome to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 209, I think. This is a DC Comics podcast. I am Peter, joining me as always with a heavily trimmed beard is Matt.
Hey, ding dang. I'd say it's good to be back, but that would be a lie.
It's not good to be back? What's upset you, Matt?
Nothing's upsetting. It's the state of the world, you know.
Oh, so everything's upsetting, so the response to that question.
That's a lie. See, I just tricked you, because hockey's coming back in 3 weeks, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yes, hopefully. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I will say my home city was stupid enough to ease restrictions, to lose being one of the hub cities for the NHL. So, good on you, people. Keep on keeping on, I guess. I haven't left my house except to go to work in a while. So, everything's great.
Carter's also here.
Yeah. In about 3 weeks' time, we got the Snooker World Championship, so it should be fun.
What? No, that's...
I'm grateful it was already back. We've had a couple of tournaments already over the last month or so, but you know, this is the big one that usually takes place, April, May time. So it's been a weird year.
So I'm glad you're excited you're gonna be back, right? Like with snooker, but are you gonna have 5 games a day?
Well, yeah, probably.
Okay.
The way they do it, yeah, in some rounds.
I'm already worried about losing most of my day because when hockey, if and when, we're gonna have 5 to 6 games a day.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and so like in one of the last tournaments that was just there was I think 12 games a day, shorter games. But these ones are going to be by the end of the tournament, there'll be longer games where it'll be one game will still last, 8 or 10 hours easily.
That's like your cricket where it never ends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Just like this conversation for Pete never ends.
It's not just that. It's just someone's first episode, and after the first 30 seconds, it's nothing but snooker and hockey talk for 2 solid minutes.
Well, then,
at least let them get settled into what the show's supposed to be first.
Here's the thing: if they're not comfortable with this showing up at random every so often, then it's probably best off getting out now while they still can.
It's not about showing up. It can show up at random later. The start has to be what the show is, so they're actually tempted to stick around.
I mean, this is kind of the show.
Oh
yeah.
My god! All right,
it's Connor mad at Annoyed Pete is the crux of the show.
DC Comics podcast. We talk about comic books. Coming up on this week's show, we have, of course, DCeased Dead Planet issue 1, Batman 94, Superman 23, Justice League 48, The Flash 757, Hawkman 25, Supergirl 42, Young Justice 16, Batman and the Outsiders 14, and Lois Lane number 12. So, hefty list of books this week. Although I didn't know actually as I was reading it was a big list of books, but I felt like, they're all normal sized. I feel like recently whenever we've had a big week, there's always been like 2 or 3 that are all
to the point that one actually surprised me because Hawkman is issue 25, and I was a little disappointed when it wasn't extra long. I was like, where's my extra pages, Hawkman?
But Dead Planet was larger. I mean, and not excessive like we've had. But
that's such a quick read. That
it's a Tom Taylor book though, so it could be 100 pages and it'd feel like 20. So
speaking of Tom Taylor, I read that Supergirl story, and I don't know if I just went in with high expectations, but I don't think I loved it as much as you guys did. Like it was
the Wonder one.
It was. I mean, there's part of it that when we read it, it was this bright spot in a book of mediocrity.
Yeah, that could be it, because I only, I tracked it down and read it, and again, it was fine, as a decent Supergirl story, but I didn't love it nearly as much as you guys did, so I felt broken for a minute, and then I read Dead Planet, and I felt really broken, so it didn't help.
Yeah. So those are the books coming up on this week's show. So good news. I still owe a Patreon book for last month, by the way, but next week it literally has half the books this week did, so I'm just going to do it there.
Fine by me.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So
honestly, I think the rest of the month's pretty quiet, especially compared to this week.
Yeah, more evenly spread out. which seems to be a trend in the solicits for the next few months. Certainly September looked nice and evenly spread out, but so yes, no solicits this week. I assume that'll be next week, so we'll have big solicits talk to go with the books next week.
Yeah, there was a couple of early things which made me think they were coming for today, and then they didn't.
Well, that'll kind of spiral us into the news quite naturally here. Got a couple of things. Did a couple of horror specials in October, as they often do. Although, perhaps a bit more refreshingly, it's not 100-page of like short stories. It's actually 2 kind of more annual-size books that they're doing in October. So the first one is a Swamp Thing book. It's called Legend of the Swamp Thing Halloween Spectacular Issue 1.
Okay.
Tom King is returning with a new story of the Green in this volume, joined by fellow writers James Tynion IV via Alea, Philip Kennedy Johnson, and Ram V. So, it's not going to be anthology style. It's still going to be
Seems heavy hitter.
48 pages, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
you got Tynion, you got Ram V. They're both doing. They're both familiar with Swampy.
Yeah, right? I would be tempted on this one as a justly dark reader that Ram V's stuff might tie into what's going on there.
I actually really loved the one-shot Tom King did on Swamp Thing. You two didn't, but I loved that a couple of years ago. So
no, it was good. It was I don't know. I like my Swamp Thing to be a little bit more of what we've been getting with Ram V, with and less of the dark bleakness that is, which I understand that was the majority of Swamp Thing up to the point, but again, we've been over. Me and Connor both really enjoyed Soul's take on the character, so I don't want to say that's metaphysical, but how it plays with mythology and the balance of natural forces versus no, this is a horror comic and it's meant to make you shocked and whatnot. So
yeah. Also, I completely lied. The second book is actually 80 pages,
and also an anthology.
Yes, also an anthology. I assumed because there was 2, it was going to be 2 similar-sized books. I never actually read the length of the second one, but the second one's an 80-page book. So, yes, the second one is DC The Doomed and the Damned issue 1. So this is obviously almost twice the length of the other one. Creators participating include Carmen Maria Machado, who just did Lolo Woods. And then we got Marv Wolfman, Ken Porter, John Arcudi, Saladin Ahmed, who typically has been doing Marvel stuff, so that's an interesting one in there. Alyssa Wong and Travis Moore. We got artist Riley Rosmo.
Of course, it wouldn't be one of these books without him.
He's always one of the artists on these big books. Mike Perkins, who I do like, Leonardo Manco, Travis Moore, and Tom Mandrake. I'll read the description for this book, because this one obviously has, I mean, the other one's obviously a bunch of Swamp Thing stories, whereas this is obviously more of a widespread thing. What happens when Batman encounters a true urban legend after speaking its name 3 times in a mirror? Wait, we're doing Candyman?
Or Bloody Mary.
Sure. Or when Madame Xanadu enlists the help of Man-Bat to take down... That says take town, that's a typo. They've made a typo here.
Either way. You say Man-Bat and you got my attention.
Yeah. Take down a shadowy spectre, reads DC synopsis for the anthology, and who could stop the intergalactic demon from turning people into frog beasts? Only the unlikely team-up of Green Lantern and Etrigan. All this and more. 7 fantastic tales to trick your treats.
All this and 7 more tales.
Oh, 7 more tales, sorry.
So it's, 10 in total?
Yeah, 8 pages each, on average, give or take. Sounds about right.
Yeah. Usually I'm hesitant with these, because of the length and having time to read it. But those 3 that they led with,
I really hope Riley Rosmo isn't on one of the ones I'm interested in.
Yeah. Although
as
that
ever.
said, his style lends itself to horror, so maybe it'll give it a different type of vibe. Versus him trying to do straight up regular superhero stuff.
Potentially.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to me that they're both coming out so early in October. They're like the 6th and the 13th respectively. So the first couple of weeks.
I guess I'd assume the idea is that the comic shops can try and flog them for a few weeks. To get enough shelf copies, they can try and say, here's some Halloween themed material for the whole month.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, I have seen Halloween gets earlier and earlier every year, so I've seen Halloween and July stuff popping up. So
That's just
maybe
wrong.
maybe the appetite's just shifting to where they're like, hey, we don't have to get it close to the holiday. We'll just celebrate all month long, like you keep saying.
Yeah, so those are both out in October. I also imagine maybe there'll be like one of the DCeased issues or something will maybe come out towards the end of the month, maybe.
That's what they did last year. They kind of they gave us 2 that month.
Yeah, they have been early in the month so far in solicits, but I wonder if they either give us 2 in October or maybe change things up. Maybe like a supersized issue at the end of the month or something. I don't know. But yeah, so we've got a couple of horror specials there. This other thing I've got is actually from over a week ago, but obviously we didn't have an episode last week, so but this is Batman Earth 1 Volume 3 is apparently finished and just waiting for a release. Jeff Johns has said that the work on it's completely done. It's just waiting until they want to actually put it out. So I really enjoyed Volume 1 of this. I still haven't read Volume 2, but I'm glad this
Volume 2 is
exists.
really good. Well, I say that as a Two-Face fan because it's Two-Face intensive. But no, the first volume was really good because it didn't do what the other Earth ones were doing, where it tried to reinvent Batman for modern times. It just told a fresh Batman story. Like, yeah, John switched stuff around, and Birthday Boy was a new villain, right? But it wasn't trying, like, from what I've read of Superman Earth 1.
Which is more than you want to.
Yeah, or Teen Titans Earth 1, which I didn't enjoy despite it being Lemire and the Dodsons.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Green Lantern Earth 1 was pretty solid.
Yeah, I think I'll get around to that one. But yeah, my friend Jared gifted me his 2 hard cover copies of Superman Earth 1.
He just wanted rid of them.
He did. It was like a cursed object. And now they're mine.
Do you know what?
Sitting on my shelf.
I'll say this: if you didn't like Superman Earth 1 Volume 1, you thought you didn't like it that much, you thought it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It'll seem like gold after you read Volume 2.
Yeah, that's the thing. Looking back now, Earth 1, the first one, it's not terrible. It's like fundamentally flawed, but it's not like terrible. Yeah. The second one is so much worse.
Yeah, see, I don't like that. And that's why I feel like Morrison's Action Comics, his first, felt more like what an Earth 1 should be. And that's kind of like what Johns did. He kind of reconfigured Batman's origins and made it fresh, kind of like what Morrison did with that Action Comics run, So yeah. Anyways, read the Batman ones, which is weird for me to say. Don't read the Superman ones. Read the Batman ones, and you'll be in good shape.
Yeah. So that was pretty much all I had. Connor said he had another 1 or 2. So
just one of those things from the early solicits that it isn't like supernova, but it confirms that Tynion is staying on Batman for issue 101 onwards, because for a long time it was rumored that we were getting a new number 1 with a new writer. Obviously, this was back when it was 5G plans. But we didn't know if it was going to, obviously, Tynion, you had a plan up to 100, because that's when Joker War ends, and it was always, I assume when he took the job, it was a interim writer job, and I wonder if it's like, hey, do you want to just stay on?
I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised that after issue 100 they're not going to legacy numbering. I was kind of expecting it with Batman, because they did it with Flash and Wonder Woman, and I felt like if it was going to be a time to do it, it was going to be, okay, like, get to 100, celebrate your 100th, and then be like, okay, now it's issue 800 and something.
We'd be close to, like, what, 850, 900 by now, Batman?
Yeah, we're definitely in the 800s.
I remember when 700 hit, because Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman all hit 700 within months of each other. I remember.
Yeah. Well, so we're definitely in the 800s, because we had that variant cover when they actually hit it. So
right.
we must be kind of approaching the mid 800s by now.
Yeah.
Right.
The only other things that I'd say about Batman 101 is, on the downside, March is still on art. So yeah, still with that. Something that I do think is a little bit interesting is they're bringing in Grifter, as in the Wildstorm one. Which obviously he had a book in the early days of the New 52, but he hasn't been seen in a long time, I don't think.
No.
Probably need someone to kill off.
I don't. No, see, here's the thing though. I don't mind when they have a story reason to try to incorporate Wildstorm characters. That's how we got Apollo and Midnighter in DC, and those were pretty well liked. They fit seamlessly. Grifter is one of those weird ones because he doesn't really have a, for lack of a better, synonym character, like someone similar, like Apollo and Midnighter.
Sure. Yeah.
Did you guys read any of his New 52 book? Because it was weird.
Yeah, I read it all. It wasn't terrible.
No, it was just like this doesn't feel like it's New 52.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It didn't feel
still
like it
felt
fit in.
pretty distinct. I think a lot of those Wildstorm books did.
Wildstorm,
The
yeah.
what was the Voodoo one?
Yeah, there was Voodoo. I think it was called Voodoo, wasn't it?
I think it was. I remember it was just called Voodoo.
I think that was called The Edge. That was that section. That's where Deathstroke
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
It was-
in this, they've got Grifter working for Lucius Fox is
Yeah.
part of the story, which
Cool.
I'm intrigued by.
Okay. Is that the news then? Is that pretty much it? I mean, actually, no, there's one thing. Actually, someone tweeted something at us. And I'm forgetting who at this point. I'm sorry. But
Is it about the Justice League?
No, this
no,
is about Flash.
yeah, it was about
Gotcha.
Flash Forward. So basically, in the trade for Flash Forward, I'm saying that name right. That was the name of that book, the Wally
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Okay. Just double check because I wasn't 100%
Yeah.
sure. So basically, they're putting that the free comic book day Generation Zero thing in that as like an extra. And my immediate reaction to this was, well, this is basically confirming that they're not doing anything with it because this is like a deleted scene on a DVD. This is just here's something we made, we're not using it anymore, but you can see what it was like.
Yeah, I did read someone who did like an actual analysis on it. It seems like they might have rewritten it a little bit for the trade and had it to do more with multiverses rather than time.
Okay.
In what it was originally going to be. I haven't really looked into it properly because I didn't really want to read it because
Yeah, but I mean, seeing what happened in Death Metal 1, that would make sense just to make it a bridge thing. You know, so it's not a deleted scene like Pete's saying, but even if it is, I mean, why wouldn't you put it in there? Because it is an epilogue to that story.
Yeah. So I mean, none of us are going to actually get the trade to read it.
Nope. Maybe if you pay me double what the cover price is, so then I can also buy something else. You know, maybe.
Cover price to pay for the book. The rest is the time that it will take you to read the 7 pages. That's all it is, 7 pages.
Yeah. So
7 pages. I think $50 a page sounds quite reasonable, quite frankly.
yeah, why not?
All right, there you go. That's basically the news. Not a lot of say stuff. I imagine maybe the reason why those October specials went out like a week earlier, because usually the preview things from the solicits and the build up to the solicits. I wonder if the reason why we got those like a week early is maybe because they've got a couple of big things to actually announce next week before the solicits.
It was like getting because we got the Batman and the tech solicits. That like they give them out to different websites early usually. So Newsarama had the Batman ones there. That's what made me think, they're coming this week, because those are usually only a couple of days before. Or it used to be when we used to get solicits on a Monday, they used to come out on the Friday before. Where now obviously we tend to get solicits on a Friday. So when I saw these, I thought, oh, they must be coming.
No, they'll be next week though for sure. So we will dive in then. So yeah, I mean we could pretty much get started on the books, but we have a lot of books this week, so I don't necessarily mind starting on them early.
No.
So we can get wired in. We will start off with the headliner, which is DCeased Dead Planet issue 1. Tom Taylor writing with Trevor Hairsine on the art. Obviously the same team, same duo from the original book. And I would say this has a lot to live up to, not necessarily because of the original DCeased, but because Unkillables was so freaking good.
Yeah.
This has to step up a little bit.
I know these are smaller, like, miniseries, right? They're all about 7. The other one was 3. But these almost just feel like next chapters and are ongoing at this point. And then I read the what's the... I always forget the name.
Hope it Welton?
Yeah, it wasn't. So I read that earlier in the week because I put it off from last week. And then I read this, and there were so many overlapping that I was like, did Taylor do this on purpose? Like,
probably. Honestly, it kind of feels like they're trying the Hellboy model sort of thing with these series.
Well, yeah, but they also feel like, I don't know, this could just be called DCeased instead of the subtitles, and then it feels like an ongoing at this point. So even though there's breaks in between or whatnot, I mean, I guess you're right with the Hellboy model or even the Image model, where they just, when there's a story, it'll come back out.
Yeah, and it doesn't even feel like there's been that much break time between them, because there was only like a month or 2 off after the first one until we got Unkillables, and obviously that was every other month.
Right.
I mean, I think
And
it's basically as simple as the put out DCeased. It was probably just meant to be like a one-off thing, but it did really well. So very quickly it was like, okay, did you have more ideas for this? And Taylor probably said, yeah, I do have more ideas. Let me do more ideas.
Yeah, we're gonna rip your hearts out and show it to you, Molaram style.
Yeah.
In this one.
So this is actually following up. This is years later, 5 years I think it said. And basically the story is kickstarted. I mean, there's a couple of pages of Constantine being miserable in the Oblivion Bar, but the real kickstart to the story is that Cyborg's head, and he's still kind of active, he's still alive, just his head, sends out a signal for help to Earth 2, as we find out it's called, in Morse code. And we come here, and so I think it was David, the one who makes Connor Reed Red Hood, who said to me this week that this is kind of what 5G probably should be, and that we cut to Earth 2 and we have John as Superman, we have Damian as Batman, and it's them operating together. And again, Taylor, as he often does with his dialogue, very quickly makes it very endearing. And something as simple as Damian wanting to pull out spleens, but then them debating if they even have spleens. And
then John being his father's son, like to a T, dealing with trying to have the diplomatic, and Damian, I don't want to say he's just being Bruce's son, he's being Damian, right? That headstrong doesn't look before he leaps. And they still have that dynamic, even as because they're not quite adults, right? They're early 20s, so they're young adults. And so it's still familiar enough of the John and Damian, but they're in their father's, footsteps.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they've still got their own banter. Like when Damian kicks one of them, and you just hear John go, "What was that?" And he's like, "Nothing." Sounded like a boot to the face, and he's just a stupid super hearing.
Yeah.
Still sounds like them, but they've been forced to grow up quicker than they really should have. And we find out that Lois is the president of Earth 2, which I'm sure Matt is delighted
as
by.
As you do. Yeah, of course.
But they get this signal, of course, from Cyborg, and they, they're sort of debating whether or not to go back. Ollie thinks it's maybe a bad idea, but he's essentially outvoted. Like, Dinah says, "Oh yeah, right, Ollie, we should vote," and he's, "That's not what I was saying."
Well, I like that he said too. She's like, "Well, you voted to come too." He's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna be the only person with my hand down to the kids. Like, I have to set an example still." So I like how he's trying to be the role model, which Ollie is not a role model. So I like that dynamic there.
Yeah, he's always been the intentional outsider, the rebel to the system. So him here being the old man, essentially having to be the example is tough for him.
Yeah, and that's just like, I'm not gonna do that. And him and Canary have this real nice moment with the sword, which I had spaced about. And then when I saw the green edge, I was like, oh yeah, this was that sword. The God Killer, basically. And
I loved and hated this entire scene because I'm like, oh, this is so good, and then I'm like, oh, this is too good.
Yep.
Yeah,
get your hackles up.
The scene ends with them being like, I'll bring you back. And I'm like, oh, God, they're not coming back.
Well, this is the thing. We ended DCeased, and so many people die in DCeased that we get to this one, and it's like, the people who survived that first time, they may actually die now. Like, those people who you thought were safe are probably doomed.
When you look at the first page, there's a whole string of Justice League that's been zombified. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter. Like, I'm like, that's a heavy hitter. That's like almost Morrison's Big Seven there. Green Lantern. Although it's Hal, not Kyle. So yeah, the stakes are there, and you have this new generation, and Dinah as the Green Lantern, which is still something that's uniquely Tom Taylor.
Yeah, but oddly fitting. But like you said, the scene was really sweet. Like her getting down on the knee and presenting him with the sword because she has the magic ring, and he's like, I don't have anything. And she's like, yeah, I get it. Your big ego. Here's a sword, so you could feel manly and whatever.
Here, you can hold the sword. It's wielding a sword. I like that. Like, they have their banter. Like, Taylor is in that. There's certain writers that are just, they have banter nailed. And I think safe to say Taylor's probably the top of them right now. For me.
I think it's impressive as well that he manages to make banter feel unique across different characters. It's not just plug and play Tom Taylor banter.
No, because Because
This
Harley
is-
banter is completely different than Dinah and Ollie banter.
Yeah, it's so
And,
different.
and then even DCeased Harley that we got to see in the first part versus Harley and Suicide Squad's different. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Superman's still eating the sun, so they mention that the Earth is actually gradually getting colder because the sun is essentially being consumed by evil.
Yeah, because
Well, not evil,
Kilowog's on guard duty.
Yep.
And yeah, so basically they relieve Kilowog, or they relieve the Green Lanterns, and they go in, and although before they do get in, there's like something coming from the Earth, and I'm sure Matt's heart broke for this, which is Crypto survived and flies out to
Oh.
John.
Yeah, greets him, and I went, "Oh no!" Now I'm doing the thing my wife does, where the dog better survive, or I'm gonna eat this. You know, because now you just introduced that. Yeah, it gets dodgy there towards the end for Crypto. I gotta say.
Mhm. Yeah, so they find Cyborg's head, and he's kind of speaking in broken patterns. They have to use the lasso to kind of even get anything out of him.
Did you guys try to decipher the Morse code before they do it in the book? Because I did.
No, Matt,
Yeah.
he's such a nerd.
I know. Sorry. I was like, that's Morse code. Let me. So I pull up a thing, and I was like, oh, it's JL. And then I turned the page and went, oh, well, he just would have told me.
Of course he was going to tell you.
I was like, there's something more to this. The dollar bill's talking to me.
If it had got to the end of the
dear.
issue and it hadn't told us, then maybe I'd have looked.
Yeah, I
Uh,
can't help it. I'm like Ron Swanson when it comes to scavenger hunts. I
Mhm.
see a puzzle. Even if I'm not confident I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to try.
Yeah,
You know?
so something that's been kind of a running theme actually ever since it happened in Killabos is that Wonder Woman makes a big entrance, right? A big scary
Yep.
entrance. Their ship's going down. Immediately things are going bad, and then you get this full page spread of Wonder Woman just ripping into Oliver. And and obviously the earlier in the issue set you up for the pain of this. It was like, no, what are you doing?
it caught me off guard because I thought it would be later in the series.
You're not right away, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So here's the thing though, a little detail I love. I don't remember if this was in the first volume, but I loved the canary cry being green now. That was such a simple little change to like what that usually looks like.
Yeah.
Give it a vibe that I really liked. So Diana goes absolutely mental on like zombie Wonder Woman. She's big giant hand with the green and then like the sword, and she's just going for it. And John comes in and basically blocks the sword hit, gets stabbed through the shoulder, which actually makes me kind of worry that when they pull the blade out, that some of the blood from Wonder Woman might go into John's bloodstream, and that could be like an issue they
Yeah,
have to deal
because
with.
they keep making a big deal, like with Lois and John, that you were frustratingly your father's son, and so I'm just like, do not
Yeah,
give me evil Superman
on
again.
on that subject, I love that line where he said, "Stop calling me Superman." She says, "Well, stop earning it then."
Yeah,
that was a nice beat.
That's great.
So the big cliffhanger though is that what Cyborg's trying to tell them, and John's the only one who's heard it because of the super hearing, which again was brought up and we reminded of us all that we had super
It's one of
hearing.
those things that
Super hearing.
they wouldn't have needed to because everyone knows Superman has super hearing, right? So
Yeah.
they didn't need
Right.
to, but just because okay, this is John, we're just going to clarify in case you're not familiar that it's the same.
Yeah. Well, even if it's not even just so much about that. It's just that you're thinking about it. So when this happens later, it clicks into place so naturally without even having to think about, oh, he's got super hearing. But it's like the final line is well, there's a bit of narration after it technically, but the final spoken word of dialogue is Dinah, there's a cure, which then makes me go, but all the people they had to like rip apart or kill because they were dangerous, like all those people could have been saved.
Yep, and that's where the horror of it comes from, right?
That's the tragedy, yeah.
Yeah, so-
but even more than that, what if they do cure Wonder Woman though? How many people has Wonder Woman killed that she's going to have to remember killing if she remembers
if,
it?
if she remembers, which I
if
feel like
she's
you
cured.
would just for the sake of the story potential, right?
Yeah, the drama, the misery is
Yeah.
too much to ignore.
Honestly, I'm not sure if Wonder Woman survived this or not.
Me
Because
neither.
obviously it goes through John's shoulder, but it looks like it's through Wonder Woman's throat.
Yeah, it kind of does. Which again makes us. I mean, which Dinah's going to have all these complex feelings of, well, she just killed Ollie, and then she finds out, well, maybe she doesn't actually have to die. We could have brought the real Wonder Woman back.
Then maybe there's the hope that Ollie can be saved now because he's not in pieces.
Yeah.
No, he's just ripped into, and so the other thing that gets me here too with the cure of Wonder Woman is she's way too big of a threat to leave just hanging out around there. You know what I mean? Like, even if you can't cure her, unless you completely dismember her, she's going to be trying to kill you. Like, she's not going to stop.
Yeah.
So,
and
I
think what I really like about this as well is it gives us a sense of hope of there's a cure, which means we are going to be crushed.
Whoa. Yeah, I was going to say, what do you mean you like that it gives us hope? No. I hate that it gives us hope because it's just hope that they can take away and tarnish later.
I like it from a storytelling potential in Tom Taylor's hands because I know, this is going to be so much more brutal than I thought it was going to be.
That's the double hit of this, though, is that you feel like, oh my god, there's hope. But then you realise, you think about how many have already died and how much this could have helped millions of people.
You know who Tom Taylor is? Have you ever seen that video of the guy that gets the Frisbee and then throws it over the highway? And his friend's like, what the F, Kevin? That Tom Taylor is the guy throwing the Frisbee, but the Frisbee's our hope. And he has it, and he's just going to throw it over the highway. You know? So, yeah. It's one of those things about horror. I remember as a kid realizing I didn't like horror because it made me feel bad. And then, as I got more into like slasher movies that are just kind of roller coastery, fun, disposable, it still doesn't sit well with me. The bad feelings of horror, the movie The Invitation has something like that. Fantastic movie. Ending makes me feel like garbage. So, and that's all good horror, right, Pete?
Oh yeah, misery. If you're not feeling miserable by the end, it's not done its job. So no, unsurprisingly, DCeased Dead Planet is, it's just a solid, fantastically done issue with heavy hitting beats, great character interactions and moments. And I can only imagine kind of the beats that it's going to hit by the time we get a couple issues into it, because I will still say I think issues 2 and 3 of Unkillables are still my two favorite things out of the entire DCeased saga, if you will. But play at a time to get there, play at a time to make me care about things.
And this is this 7 issues as well?
It is, yes. So it's an extra issue to the first one.
Yeah. Well, because the first one technically had 7 because you had the Constantine.
The one shot.
So,
yes.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me because I said this during Killables, but the idea that the first miniseries, while very good, was very much kind of like, oh, what if the zombie thing attacked the DC universe, and it was almost all the obvious beats just to do because that whereas I feel like Unkillables and now this is actually like really exploring story potential after you've set everything up.
Yeah, the first one is I want to set up this world, so it's a story I have to tell to get there. But it seems like Taylor's way more interested in telling the story of survival, of like this is the world now, right? And this is how all the characters that we've got to know and love over years of fandom, how are they dealing with it? And then the fact that he's using Damian and John as this next generation, versus the typical next generation, your Dicks and Wallies and that, who are a little bit older, who we think the mantle's going to, right? But the fact that we've jumped them to these guys, I think that's really interesting.
Makes a lot of it hurt more. But I think what this sort of solidifies for me in a very specific way, and it's something I've always had the sense of from Taylor, is that he just kind of gets it. He gets what we fall in love with and what we love about comic books and characters, because it would have been very easy, because so much of DCeased world, barring John and Damian, is very Silver Agey in terms of it's all these, or not even Silver Agey, maybe just pre Flashpoint, right? It's post-crisis kind of world, with a lot of that continuity seemingly intact, give or take. But John and Damian are there, right? And we have this idea of John being Superboy, and the fact that he's mixed those things together it feels like he gets what we love about everything from pre-Flashpoint, but then there's also these elements from Rebirth that we also love, that we've grown attached to, and it's mixing all these things together. It just feels like there's a nuance there where it's not just black and white, it has to be this era or that era. It's like no, there's clearly things from every era that have stood the test of time. New 52 being the one exception where I don't really want anything from it. But like,
I know there's some decent stuff from New 52.
we've had this debate before. We're not doing it
Over
again.
this, and Pete's a terrible person.
Yeah, there's some stuff. I don't want all of it. I feel like a lot of the stuff from Rebirth we would have got to, the John, the Damians, and whatnot over time. Versus stuff of the New 52 is just a sidetrack that you didn't have to go on. National Lampoon's Vacation style. You're like, oh yeah, we did all that, and the car is destroyed now. Versus
Damian's an easy one to point out. No, we would have got here. John is a little murkier, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe. I mean, he did come from Convergence. Like, that was where Jurgen's planted the seed. So yeah, you can make the argument, but I also still feel where we were, it was just natural for Lois and Clark to have a kid.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, it wasn't the point of what I was saying is not to go into what eras gave us. The point was just that Taylor seems to get and understand kind of what works from each era, whereas DC editorial, every time it does do a Flashpoint or a Crisis or whatever, does seem to want to reshape things and just wants us to forget about certain things, and that's what makes certain things so frustrating. Whereas here, I feel like Taylor taps into all of it. So I guess what I'm saying is that he's a fan first, and that kind of shines through everything he writes. So yeah, and Hairsine's art, Hairsine's art, it was the same as it was in the original.
I feel because it felt more familiar, like I feel it was a little bit more clean and whatnot. Like it wasn't, or maybe because there was not as much zombie stuff, it wasn't of that scratchy style, but it felt different.
Yeah,
still good.
It was the odd face maybe here or there, but overall, all the important beats especially really landed. Like Dinah crying as she flies off with the sword towards Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
great moment.
Yeah. All right, Matt, what are you giving Deceased Dead Planet issue 1?
That's a 9.
Got her?
Yeah, 9.
Yeah, 9. All right. Batman 94, James Tynion the fourth writing with Guillem March and Rafael Albuquerque on the art. What a catch-22.
It's so frustrating opening with some lovely Albuquerque art, right? And then
descending into March. Now, without Albuquerque, I don't think the the March stuff would stand out as much, right?
It's not his worst in this book.
No, and I feel like we always kill March, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting, I'm losing my sensitivity to it because we're seeing it more and more.
That's how he wins.
I understand, but at the same time, it's not as bad as it was when it started, right? But you put it against Albuquerque, and you're like you're doing yourselves a disservice, guys. Because there's clearly a difference here.
Honestly,
it doesn't meld.
The best thing going for March's art is that I still have to read JRJR in action, and by default, March's art feels not as bad.
Better,
so
yeah.
It does have, though, despite how overall I would say I'd agree that the March's stuff is better in this issue than it has been in other issues. It does have one particular moment which is one of his worst yet.
Okay.
Okay,
we'll get there, I guess.
So this entire issue, well, it kind of feels like the start of an arc. It's actually billed as the end of an arc, which makes sense because we're at a Joker War. So I guess this is kind of the it feels like proper serialized Batman storytelling where the arcs kind of build into each other and so on and so on. This issue has a very specific goal and a very specific thing that it wants to do, which I kind of appreciate. I appreciate the focus of it all kind of building up to one kind of final beat at the end, and everything from before that is kind of, narratively, at least from the narration point of view, and how Bruce is thinking about things, kind of building to that. We start with him talking about the final person he wanted to learn from in his sort of, his time before he became Batman, before year one. And, I really hope they don't do anything bullshit here, because I was a little bit worried at one point they were going to hit us with some sort of twist that this guy, this Baker that he goes after, was actually going to turn out to be the designer or something stupid like that.
No, this is not Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, that's clearly
name Baker.
Sherlock inspired.
So, what's the deal with the cities? Am I missing something here?
Well,
in
the cities?
Yeah. So Bruce says that he used to draw these cities. Was he just drawing
the little Gothams?
Yeah. Was he just drawing them on scrap paper? Because when he goes to see Baker, Baker has a room covered in them. Unless I read that incorrectly.
It looks like it's scrap paper because one of them, he's just there. It's almost like it's just drawn on a napkin while he's at the cafe.
Okay.
On that very first page. So yeah, I guess they are a lot of just scrap paper.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
kind of Bruce meeting someone who obviously doesn't learn from, because the whole point of this is that he refuses to train him. But this is someone who, if you're taking like each person that you learn from in terms of what part of Batman they contribute to, this is the person who always planned for everything and is the detective, right? This is the one who, because he goes into that room and it's kind of like his bat cave full of all of his evidence, and it's like, but you have evidence from like drawings I've done and blah blah blah. But obviously we cut back to reality, and it's Batman crawling on the floor with the blade in his leg. In the room, of course, which we mentioned last time, is the room where, he's like, Father, I shall become a bat. It's that room in the manor.
Which feels more intentional by the time we get to the end of this issue.
It's actually, it's just very well set up in that sense. And, the art of this page is pretty fine, I think, to be honest. Because this is March, right? Like this is
this is this present day is where we shifted to March.
This is some of the best stuff March has ever done, to be honest. In my eyes, this page.
Yeah, I really dislike his Batman's chin.
Which does not go against me saying it's the best thing March has ever done.
No, that's true. It's just distracting.
It is. It reminds me of Quarter Owl stuff, and I don't know why. Like, he reminds me of an owl, not a bat. He's got that big, long chin.
Sure.
I kind of get what you now that you're saying that. I can kind of place the link of the memory, although I couldn't specifically tell you what it was.
Me neither. But
there is. I mean, I do love some of the details here from a storytelling perspective, not in the art, but in the idea that, much like in year one, Bruce was going to ring the bell so Alfred would come and save him. The bell's on the table. I like that we actually see it in this case, because in year one we never see Alfred actually come. It's kind of like not a mystique, but like an off-panel kind of thing where Bruce just makes the choice, and that's the important part of the story. It's not about Alfred coming to get him. But I do kind of like we see that Lucius runs in with a case, and he tries to patch him up, and he's like, "You have to go to the hospital. You're using too much blood. This is terrible." But everything obviously is going AWOL because Joker's taking all of his money. He's seizing the manor.
So just to go back to the bell, I thought it was interesting that he didn't ring the bell and Lucius just happened to come in anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that was really notable for me here, in that he didn't actually make that choice and got saved regardless.
Well, I think that's a thematic thing, but I don't think he ever actually has to consider ringing the bell in this case, because why would he even expect Lucius to be there to answer a bell call? He's not Alfred. He doesn't just hang about in the manor.
No, that's fair. It's just the way it's really looking at it. It's intentionally reminding you of it, and then he does nothing and is saved anyway. So I think it's thematically still that important.
Well, wasn't Lucius on the way because he was talking to him? Right.
Maybe last issue, but he's still talking to him in this issue.
Right, but I do love the Lucius going, I can't be Alfred and me. Like, if I wasn't so worried dealing with you, I would have been able to catch the Wayne stuff here on the business side. And it kind of made it feel Bruce kind of hopeless, because now this is the first time he's really feeling Alfred's absence that has actually changed how Batman operates. Yeah.
He demands to know where. I say demands as if Lucius won't tell him, but he wants to know where Selina is. She's in an ambulance on the way to the hospital, and he wants to talk to her on the phone. It's kind of a heartfelt thing because they call each other cat and bat, and they mentioned that they've not said that to each other in a while. So obviously Tynion paying homage to King's.
Yeah, I don't think it's been said in Tynion's stuff at all yet.
Yeah. So it had a little bit of impact. But so this issue, kind of as he starts to tell Selina here, is Batman realizing that he's kind of, as he explains through his narration after this as well, this idea that he in trying to basically turn into what Alfred wanted him to be, by taking the drawings and being, because Alfred always said, this was your hope of a brighter future of a city, but in reality what Bruce was actually doing was he was just drawing the city of his nightmares that he was obsessed about, from the night his parents died. And basically by trying to be what Alfred wanted him to be, he kind of lost who he was instead, and that's kind of how everything's been able to one-up him here. And
don't know if I like that. sentiment.
I kind of do. Well, especially when he ties it back into the when he talks about the Baker, right? This idea that Baker wanted him to fail because he didn't want him to be better than he was, and he talked about he never he didn't quite understand yet what he had to do to be himself and not just be a copy of him, and it kind of ties that into the yes, father, I shall become a bat, which leads to the big moment at the end. And I do like the sort of dramatic final point that we get at the end, which is obviously he essentially has that moment but instead of asking for his father's guidance, he asks for Alfred's guidance, which I think pulls on some heartstrings.
I really like the idea and the beat of it. I hate the actual line. I will become a better bat. That was kind of terrible.
Cheesy.
It's a bit cheesy.
I wouldn't say it's terrible. Like, it fits. It's just the way that it's played it's a little bit overly dramatic. Right?
It's such a self-serious issue, intentionally so, and in a good way, right? Dealing with the ramification of everything that's just happened, and then this really cheesy over-the-top line at the end. I thought it was kind of terrible.
I disagree. I kind of love the last page, if I'm honest, but it spoke to my sensibilities. It pulled on my heartstrings. Him saying what he once said about his dead father, about Alfred, kind of it because the whole thing with the Waynes is that they've always been kind of this thing that this pair of characters who have died before the story, right? Obviously, we have a lot of flashbacks. We see them die over and over again because the writers can't help themselves. But ultimately, it's always this reverence of, yes, father, I shall become a bat. So it's one thing for us to often talk about Alfred kind of being his new father, and every time they sort of bring that up, I remember when R.I.P. happened, and there was this message from Alfred saying that he's, or from Bruce saying, I had two fathers, and there's been all the times where we see Alfred say, I just lost my son, and there's been these references throughout these big stories. But ultimately, almost the biggest accolade you could give Alfred is to say that his death is just as important as the Waynes is to Bruce, right? So,
and that's what I like, and so that's the whole. When I said I didn't like it, him saying that he was trying to be what Alfred wanted him to be, not what he wanted to be, yet now he's going to turn around and try to honor Alfred by being better. It feels like a mixed message, right?
I don't think it's mixed. I get what it's doing in that sense, because the whole point is that he wasn't supposed to just be a copy of Baker, right? He was supposed to be his own version of whatever Bruce is. And the idea being he can't just be whatever Alfred's vision of him is to be. He has to be whatever Bruce is, whatever Batman is on his own. It's that realization as opposed to... It's not about going against Alfred's wishes.
Well, it's not about Alfred's wishes, but it also... Tynion goes out of his way to show how important Alfred has been to Bruce. Right, by Lucius telling him, I can't be Alfred. He did way too much for you. Yeah. So at the same time, he's trying to make Alfred's, influence mean a whole lot, but now Bruce is trying to get away from it as well. It's just, again, for me, it was a mixed message. It didn't quite land.
Well, it's not about making Alfred less important. His influence is huge. It's kind of like a parent who their kid has to do their own thing, has to fly the nest, but it doesn't obviously their influence and their raising of the child is still super important. That's kind of what this is doing. It's Alfred is super important. He is this essential part of who Batman was and is, and this is so it's not trying to diminish that. It's a separate kind of lesson essentially.
I get where Matt's coming from though. Putting both those two lessons into the same story, with pages apart from each other, feels a bit messy.
I suppose. So the big thing though, setting up into the new stuff, is that Selina actually goes missing from the hospital, and Batman's is worried that Joker's got her, and he's told Lucius to be careful. He tells Lucius's daughter to run home and hide and not open up. And there's some really dark dialogue from Joker and Punchline, just talk because Joker said, I'm such a good mood, henchman, you can take out an entire hospital floor if you want. And then Punchline jokes that she's getting jealous because of how Joker's talking about Batman. She's like, hey, I'll make it up to you, I'll get you a whole district and you can kill everyone inside. And she's like, yeah, that'll do, that'll make it up to me. Really dark dialogue, really selling the absolute turmoil that's coming. And Batman has to go sort of diving out the window to run away. There is a horrible page of Selina waking up. Her face is doing... This
is the moment that I thought is one of March's worst in the book yet.
Yeah, no, I can get on this. I will say I love this concept though that he introduces here, Tynion, with Penguin basically giving a place for all the villains to hide out, because whenever Joker's doing one of his big crazy ploys, they want no part of it. They just want to go and hide until the fire's done.
Yeah, them talking about being, and I'm using words exactly here, in full lockdown, and it's going to be a long summer. Felt a little on the nose.
Oh yeah, maybe that was intentional.
I do feel that's him pulling from real life.
Yeah,
you know, and that's fine. So who are the two fire guys? Because one of them's Firefly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other one Killer Moth?
I assume so.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then next to the one up on the top, that's Tiger Shark, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who
I got really
I've not
excited to
seen
see Tiger
in
Shark.
years.
It's been a while.
No, that was from the Black. Was it the Black? Help me out, Pete. Snyder's first run on Batman.
Oh, yeah, the black.
I can't remember if it's glove or hand.
It's the glove. It's the Black Glove.
Yeah.
Okay, because Black Hand was a Morrison thing.
I was just trying to remember the two arcs, because there was two arcs before. It was Batman and Son, then Batman the Black Glove. That was the two arcs before RIP.
Right.
Yeah.
So
he showed up the last few times. He was in.
He was in an issue of Nightwing, wasn't he?
He was, and he showed up in like an issue of like the Court of Owls stuff. I think.
Mm.
So just fun to see him, and we know that Tynion comes from Snyder's school of, he was one of Snyder's kind of guys that he helped shepherd. So to see that character pop up, I thought it was a whole lot of fun. And then when Penguin says that the doctor worked on Cow, is he talking about Pig?
For her sake, I hope not.
Because if that's the case, Selena needs to watch out, because he is not the best doctor.
There is some camaraderie here that I kind of like, of Penguin looking out for her a little bit, even though he admits that she's not been on their side of the fence for a while. Obviously, Selena wants to go help Bruce, and he's like, "No, we're locked in here." I do think, obviously, the lockdown thing is a direct reference to the real world. I do think that it's going to be a long bloody summer. It's kind of almost just like a tease of Joker War's a summer event, and admittedly it's starting a little bit later than they intended, but it feels like it's like a hey, gear up, we're about to go into the main event of the year for the Batman comics, and so no, I also kind of like how this almost, I mean, obviously Joker doesn't necessarily need to be sold on us anymore. We know his reputation. Joker's a big deal. He's the biggest villain in comics, but I do kind of love the idea that the other villains are like, you know what, we just get out of the way, we don't want to be involved, we're all going to hide until it's over, until Batman's done his thing. And then obviously the dark little touch of him taking bets on which district's going to die first and stuff like that. But yeah, and then it's the final part with Bruce saying, "Yes, Alfred, I should become a better bat." I agree the better bat part of it's a little bit clunky, but I kind of like the callback to year one, because at the start of the issue I was kind of rolling my eyes. I was like, okay, we're referencing year one. How many writers love to reference year one as there been a Batman story? But because it was building up to this, I kind of forgive it in retrospect, because the whole point is kind of like giving Alfred this kind of value. Because again, I see this as them giving value to Alfred, not from saying we have to go away from what Alfred wanted. So that works for me. Obviously, the art is varying shades of good to all right to terrible.
Yeah.
So
quite the, you almost get whiplash at some points. So,
you really do. Just the turn of a page can be so drastic.
Well, what got me though is that there was whiplash between March's own pages. It's one thing to expect it from going from a good artist to March, but March was bouncing around so much on his own.
I just don't trust him to draw the female form when there's less clothes involved.
I don't trust him to draw it when they're completely covered head to toe.
yeah, but we see him like the worst of it was his Selena in her skivvies, right? Like,
what gets me though is that he's had a lot of problems with obviously the female body. I think what gets me about that Selena page though is that the worst part of it's not even the body; it's that her face, it's the weird eyes and the jaw.
I think part of the problem comes, you feel like he spent so much time getting the front part of the body sorted. Because look at the
face, the expression comes last.
It's an afterthought.
But even look at the shoulders. Look at the position that they're in. That to push her forward, that it just looks unnatural. Like the way her shoulder kind of goes into her arm and into the collarbone, it just looks wrong. And I'm like, spend a bit more time on those bits of the body, please, March.
Yeah, it's what's so funny is that King obviously his writing got a little bit less consistent as the run went on with him, but he pretty much always had great artists. I think barring like there was one like Ramita Junior arc, I think, but other than that, it was like great artists like through and through, back to front, and I feel like
you like Janin, Lee Weeks,
yeah. I'm actually really liking what Tynion's doing overall with the run. It feels like a solid Batman run, but like we've just been burdened with this Guillem March art for so much of it.
Yeah, and like I'm trying not to sound shitty, but if you follow Tynion on social media, he's very excited to work with March, and I just feel like I'm missing something.
Is he though, or is he just contractually obligated to say that?
Well, I don't know. I
don't think it's for contractual obligation. I think it's professional courtesy. You don't badmouth people you work with in public.
No, but there's a way that I don't know. I guess maybe Tynion's just that guy. Maybe he's just that nice, that he's putting them over a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, do you think he requested March, or was just DC like this is who we've got for you?
I feel like if you're writing Batman, I feel like you can make a little bit of decisions, and if you want, over in action, I do feel like you're like, okay, Bendis, if you're getting both Superman books, you got to take JR.
No, I don't think so. Bendis and JR, they have a history, don't they?
Maybe. I can't tell you what they've worked on together before.
Just admit it that Bendis made a bad call. If it was his choice, I don't know if it was his choice. I mean, I think JR's quick and reliable at getting things done in time, which clearly when it comes to comic book art isn't necessarily the thing that makes for good art. If an artist can actually hit monthly deadlines and
JR did Avengers and AVX with Bendis.
How many issues though?
I don't know. This article it's just talks about it was just talking about them reteaming and having a relationship in the past.
I'll say that JR probably is great on the convention circuit doing quick little sketches. He probably has that down. Not so much the panels of art, but yeah, I'm trying to be more positive. It's 2020. Trying to put positive stuff out there. Trying not to talk trash too much, but sometimes they make it hard.
I love that's just like two books that have spiraled into a tangent about a greater problem. Anyway, all right. So Batman 94 then. So let's see how much Connor underscores it compared to everyone else. Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm gonna go 7.5.
Connor,
I'm only going a little bit under. I think it's a solid 7.
Okay, all right. I'm actually also going to give it a 7.5, even though I clearly was a bit more positive on it. I think that the bad art just, even though, like I said, some of the March's pages are actually better than what he's been doing, it just drags it down enough. Like on story alone, I'd have probably been maybe verging towards the 8.5 or something like that, but I have to take points off for the March art. I just have to. But there you go. Batman 84. Superman 23, Bryan Michael Bendis writing with Kevin Maguire on the art. Hey, that's a good artist. Nice art. That's
good. Yeah, great tandem here.
Yeah. So this is the start of a new arc, which is interesting because we kind of wrapped up the Rogol Zar stuff and the all the truth stuff, all that was kind of done, and it starts off. I actually missed the lettering here that said 3 weeks ago. The first time I read the first couple of pages, it wasn't until I got to the second flashback that I went, "Oh, that previous one was also set before," which made sense because it was clearly because I thought this feels like Leviathan stuff. This thing that shows up at the DEO.
Because it was. I was like, I've seen this scene because I did the same thing where I missed. So I was reading at work, and when you have everybody talking, you kind of just focus on what you can, and so I went back a couple pages, like, oh yeah, this makes so much more sense.
So basically all the flashbacks are building up this entity that bonds itself to this agent that works at the DEO, which I actually really appreciate. Once I got to the end, I actually kind of liked how it built up to it through the various flashbacks.
So this is Superman doing magic, so Bendis is hitting all these aspects of Superman. I feel like he has a checklist, and now he's got to magic. We're used to reading Justice League Dark when we got to the Lords of Order stuff.
I can't remember.
Because this Okay, so this feels like very hand in hand with that, down to this character. He is the overlord of the Lords of Chaos. He feels like when the Lords of Order got together with all the armor pieces, he feels like the inverse of that. So I don't know if that's Bendis like pulling from that or just similar thought, but I thought it was a really fun touch, especially because he goes to, we get Khalid Fate in this one.
Yeah, Joe, it's funny actually. When Dr. Fate showed up for a couple of pages, I went, "I'm going to have to ask them who's Dr. Fate right now." But then he took off his helmet and said who he was. So I was like, "Okay, never mind then. Never mind." So yeah, the main plot of the issue. We'll go back to the villain stuff when I get to the bigger stuff at the end. But the main plot is that Superman has an appointment with the Doctor, to the point where when Dr. Fate shows up at the Hall of Justice, he's like, "The Doctor will see you now," very enigmatically. Wonder Twins are there for a cameo. He runs into most of the Justice League Dark. Is there something with Constantine here? This bit where he tells Superman not to talk about his name, and calls him like Billy, I think, at one point.
I feel like he's messing with him because he's saying that it's Shazam, not Superman, or something. Why else would you call him Billy?
Yeah, I got confused here. I didn't get the joke here, to be honest. I felt a bit of a...
Well, either did I, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go over this. I'm going to guess it's kind of a take on how much Shazam and Superman look alike, So, but yeah. Constantine knows this is post the truth, so he knows he's not.
Everyone knows. One of my favorite jokes in the issue is the Wonder Twins, where it's like, "Oh, come on, stop with the Clark." It's his name.
Yeah. I just, I know Russell did the Wonder Twins, but Bendis is taking the spirit of that book, and whether it's them in Young Justice or right here, he nails Zan's whole, laissez-faire attitude towards everything on Earth.
So basically, Superman goes to the Tower of Fate, and he wants Dr. Fate to check him out because everyone's kind of worried about him. Lois and co, Batman, all that sort of stuff. And he gives him like a mystical checkup and sees, is there anything attached to you? Is there anything going on? And basically, it turns into more of a therapy session where Superman is kind of, he's asking Superman questions about what he's been going through, and he talks about, John sort of getting lost in space, coming back years older, and eventually kind of breaking down and admitting that. This kind of gets to him that he missed some of those years he was looking forward to of John's life, and it was kind of a nice little, almost like not recap, but like exploration of everything that we've had since the start of Bendis' run.
Well, not just that, and it's Superman's almost therapy. That he needs to talk about this, but he's also so busy about being Superman, and I can't let anything bother me, and I just have to be positive and move on. But it's starting to crack. And I liked seeing that from him because he's upset that he missed out on these formative years of his son's life because he ultimately helped make the decision for John to go with Jor-El. And, so there's a bit of responsibility there.
Every time he is about to, he's explaining these things, he always sort of rounds up by saying, "I don't blame Jor-El," or "I don't blame so-and-so, I don't blame that." And Khalid says, "Look, this is not about blame, but you're allowed to feel frustrated." And this is what gets to his like actual page where he's like sort of breaks down a little bit, and he basically yells out, "I wanted to watch my son grow up," and he's lost this. So yeah, so the woman's essentially been possessed, the DEO agent, because it kind of it coalesces at the end a little bit where she's coming to the Hall of Justice, and. This being this because she goes to Madame Xanadu actually before that's one of the flashbacks. So she goes to and she says, "Have you ever heard of Xanadoth?" And it's like, no, is it like a distant relative that I'm unaware of? And basically Xanadoth shows up at the end. The big cliffhanger is that he's went into the DEO, he goes into the Tower of Fate, and says, that helmet belongs to me. I am the what was it said? I am the Lord of the Lords of Chaos. So the true helmet or true owner of the Helmet of Fate,
which to me doesn't make sense because as much as I know about Naboo, he is the guardian of the Lords of Order. So, this is where the magic stuff I start to be like I can't keep it all straight. That's
why I don't like magic that much, Matt.
Oh no, I like magic when there's rules, like you've always said too, and I feel like Tynion and now Ram V, they've they broke down magic enough to now that there's these new rules, and here now you have Bendis. Well, now this Lord of Chaos is saying he's, that belongs to him. And I'm like, oh man, I thought we cleared this up already. So yeah, no, but it's fine. I like when magic shows up and interacts with Superman because he's so out of his element.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can deal with an alien invasion, right? And Rogolzar and the United Planets. But you start doing the magic stuff with him, and he is he's in the same position as everybody else. So, but I don't get very sinister vibes from this Xanadoth guy. Like I don't feel like he's this big, like, hulking monster. So I wonder if there's just going to be him and Superman talking stuff out, and about how
your mic's going, Matt. What I liked about this issue, because I'm obviously not a big magic guy, and like maybe it helps that I've not been reading Dark, so I don't feel as contradictory with what's going on.
Sure.
But what I like how it builds up the character, like, because I love the little tease as she's walking into the Hall of Justice, and it's kind of like, the Hall of Justice, is closing in 15 minutes. Please visit the gift shop. Snapper car merchandise is 75% off because they probably can't sell it otherwise. But no, I like the build up and the flashbacks to just sort of building some intrigue of who this is and how it's taking over this woman, and how it's building up to kind of whatever its goal is, whatever its motivation is. And then I like the therapy side of Superman because it's all very character based. It's it's in the Tower of Fate, but it's not necessarily focused on the magic side of it. It's about character. So while it's verging into magic, and we'll see what the next issue does, maybe I won't like it as much, but I think this issue works quite well for me because it slowly builds the villain side, and all the Superman stuff is very kind of like very much reflective of everything he's went through in this run, and it makes it all feel like, again, like it's unified, like it doesn't just feel like it's moved on to a new arc and forgotten everything from before. It still feels like it's part of one big tapestry, which I appreciate.
Even with at the beginning, there's this panels have been going around of Superman stopping to take a picture with the kid, that wants to meet him, and he's just kind of like, the public's superhero, and I feel like Bendis has really embraced that over his course of writing him, which is really, really nice. Because for the longest time, he kind of had outsider Superman at play, and now he's focusing on him being almost focusing on his humanity, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So yeah, but what I was getting at before my mic went out was just that I feel like this Xanadoth guy seems like this dark, sinister force, but I feel with Khalid and Superman talking most of this issue out, I definitely feel this is going to be more akin to like a conversation and not so much a fight. And I feel like the lesson's going to be about, you can, without chaos, there's no order. And so Superman has to go through all of this stuff so he can keep his own self in line, and maybe it'll play something to do with Leviathan as well for Bendis to bring all that back up. Like that's where she was when all this went down.
And I think it's interesting here that even Superman hasn't told Lois, like some of the things that he's saying to Fate here, he's not even said to Lois. That's him opening up with this idea that he doesn't want to burden anyone with like how he feels, or even himself. Like he kind of almost pushes it to the back of his mind, like to the point where he's almost surprised at himself when he yells out that he's upset about missing John's years, even though he obviously would be. Why wouldn't he be? But it's really solid character stuff for Superman, and kind of I could take an issue of Superman lying on a therapist couch, just talking about your stuff, So. I knew that was coming. All right, so obviously art's great. I love Maguire's art. I think it works really well for Superman. It's not necessarily the Superman art I would pick for a therapy session per se, which is not a complaint. Just so much that I think of Maguire's art. I think of pulpy, kind of heroic, bright colors. I think of
his Supergirl run.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. I get what you're coming from.
So it's an interesting. Obviously, some of that's in here. Him taking photos with the kids and all that stuff, but it's definitely solid art and very pleasing to the eye, and I have very little complaints. So, Matt, what are you giving Superman issue 23?
I'll give it an 8.5.
I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10 from me. Justice League 48. Cy Spurrier on the writing with Aaron Lopresti on the art. In fact, first thing I'll say is I thought Lopresti's art was quite nice as I was reading this.
Lopresti's art usually is.
Yeah. Obviously we're going to a new arc with a new team, writer changing and everything. No idea what to expect from this.
The odd moment face here or there, but mostly overall, I think it has a great tone to it.
I think what I liked about just the choice of story here, which is still very much just kind of a, let's have a sort of romp Justice League story before we get to the next thing, is the setting is completely different. I kind of liked that it was a space story, because it was like, okay, immediately it feels very different from what we had last time.
Yeah. Did Matt read this in the end? I know he wasn't sure.
Nope, I didn't. So if I might go back and catch up, but any opportunity I can get to cut something, especially on a big week, I'm gonna take it. So
sure. Wonder Woman's got a really cool mask for breathing in space, which I thought was nifty.
It is nice very touch. Cool, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, they're out here because there's a ship that's been attacked by some huge alien entity.
Yeah. They don't know when they get there. They just know there's a distress signal, so they're like, "Well, we should probably go and help."
Yeah. And of course they're debating, like, Superman's not happy about hurting a creature that might just be acting to its nature. It's not necessarily malicious. But it's like, well, it's kind of about to rip the ship in half and kill whatever's inside. And Flash speeds in and finds out that it looks like a bunch of alien kids who are very helpless looking.
And they're like, there's like 10 seconds here before it cracks the hull and all these kids die.
So Superman sort of agrees, okay, let's look to like fighting it and like hitting pressure points to get it away from the ship and so on. But Wonder Woman actually quickly swoops in and does a couple of things with some asteroids, and it turns out that basically it's protecting its own kind of offspring and its mate in the nearby asteroids, and the ship just got too close. So she actually diffuses the whole situation without hurting anything, and she's like, "Oh, I figured this out while she were debating what to hit," and makes even Superman look a bit like a lug. But the story then becomes, these alien kids are on their own and they've been set adrift, and we discover this moving world that is divided into the Cell and what was the other one called? The Spark.
And they have an empress who kind of rules over them, and
she's a bit of a combo.
Unite both sides, but not by choice necessarily. She's a bit shitty.
Well, to explain kind of like what she is though, is that the Spark are kind of all cyborgs, and then the Cell are, I'd say, more like natural mutants essentially. And the Empress is kind of this combination of both. She's kind of like she looks kind of like if the Borg had taken the mutant kind and like assimilated them, so it's just kind of like a combo of the both. But basically the Justice League bring the kids back, and it turns out like her rule is awful, and she basically jettisoned a bunch of kids to like keep people in line as a warning to what she would do to others if they rebelled. And the Justice League, it kind of becomes something that every so often a Justice League story will tackle this idea of like how much should we intervene, because they come in and Superman insists that he has to stop her from killing people for whatever she sees fit, and Wonder Woman isn't sure that was the right move, and then ultimately these people don't know how to run the world themselves. They've just been under rule for so long, so they basically ask the Justice League, hey, can you rule us? Can you be our emperors?
Yeah, this is so the bit where Superman actually intervenes is their return with the kids has essentially sparked a coup, and there's a lynch mob coming in. They've got the Empress down. Specifically,
it was a message Batman sent to the world before they got there that they took as like a sort of like message of like, I don't know, help was coming, freedom is attainable.
Pretty much, and then they arrived with the kids. So it sparks all this stuff, and they've got the Empress down, ready to. Well, one's got a gun pointed at her head, and the other one has like a vibro axe, I'm gonna call it. It's gonna like lop her head off, and that's when Superman just comes in, takes both weapons, is like, nope, not doing this. Yeah. And that's what Diana's really frustrated by. It's like, no, this is their society. What right do we have to intervene with that? Yeah, the example she gives later, the metaphor she uses later, is because obviously after this point, they said, well, no, now they can figure out their world and their future on their own. This has to be their choice. Star Trek, Prime Directive, but this has to be theirs. Trials, elections, whatever they do now is up to them. Yeah, but one of them says, yeah, but we just cracked the egg and now we're refusing to help make the omelet. And it's funny because I think the writing's good enough here that I can see where Wonder Woman's coming from, even though fundamentally I kind of side with, no, they should intervene and stop people from just murdering each other, and it's frustrating. This is in particular, this feels very French Revolution. What's going on here? And it's like, well, I mean, we got through it, right? You know, society moved through that and got past that phase, and maybe there's no just let them do their thing. You know, maybe if they'd done that and worked through the government themselves, they'd have come to understandings in their own right, instead of just being like, well, I guess you're ruling us now. Yeah, that'll do nicely. Where they haven't actually learned anything.
Yeah, and this big alien thing attacks the Trotha, or Trotha are these people, these two things. There's some humor here as well, actually, where they have no gender, seemingly, and the translator just defaults to everything being female for that. So
it's a theme throughout the book. Obviously, Wonder Woman being the woman and being alone here. The big alien thing that they were attacking before was that was the female of its species, and the male incubates the larva in the asteroid.
Yeah, because there's a joke where John gets called ma'am, and he's like, did they just call me ma'am? And it's Barry explains, the translator just defaults to female because they have no gender.
And it's interesting, these Trotha. That's
Trotha, yeah.
Trotha. Throwing in an extra H there. They're actually just one species, because there's one of them, the cell or whatever, is saying, welcome sister to the spark, and it's like, wait, hang on a second, you look completely different. What's going on here? How are you sisters? And it's they actually, when they're 15, they choose which side they are. Although they kind of put it as it's not really a choice. It's just all children feel drawn to one or the other.
Which actually explains why the kids all look different from the adults. Like, so the kids they found on the ship, clearly this is what they're like before they make their choice.
Yes,
as to which
because
side
they're like
they're going
little,
on.
kind of just yellow glowing babies.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
So, and there's a moment during because this big thing attacks them, Death of the Trotha, and the Justice League sort of intervene, obviously, as they do, and Superman says, everyone get down, and in like a sort of action moment way where there's danger coming, get down, and the Trotha all just start bowing, yes, Your Majesty. He's like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, and then there's a big explosion, and that's the end of the issue.
Yeah. That's kind of falls into a very similar standard, I think, of the last arc, which is like, this is a fairly solid kind of like interlude story that's, I don't think it'll be that important in the long run, but it was a solid enough read.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little clunky in the way it pits kind of Wonder Woman versus everyone. There's no one else on her side, and that feels a little unfair. It feels unlikely that no one else has that opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. It just felt a little bit weird.
Maybe we'll see them be swayed. Maybe we'll, or something, like, maybe, because I mean, this enemy of the Trotha, I assume there's going to be more to this. Like, why are they being attacked? I mean, I think it says something like, "Oh, now your Empress is gone, you're weak and for the taking."
Well, I was just going to talk about the exact wording is you have been sundered by division, because it's a whole thing over the issue is the idea of the division within the society. It's these two sides, but the Empress was unity and kind of kept them together. And they treat them all badly, but and John's just like, oh no, it's classic divide and conquer. But then when this thing arrives, it's no, you've demobilized your military, your society is sundered by division. It's like, no, this is good for them. So the Empress was, in some ways, keeping them safe. It seems, even if she was terrible.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to explore. We'll see what they do. It was enjoyable enough read, though. I have no regrets over.
No, I agree. It was kind of fun. Especially the art was really nice for the most part.
Yeah, I especially like the stuff in space,
colorful and clean.
Yeah.
I like continuing having the nice blue cape for Batman.
Yeah, that's still there. Yeah,
it seems to be just in the Justice League books. Everyone else is like just a black cape, but
I'm alright with that. He's got a Justice League specific outfit. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine, but I prefer the blue cape, so keep it up.
But yeah, all right. What are you giving Justice League 48?
It's a 7.5.
Yeah. Well, I'll give it a 7.5. That's a fine score. All right. The Flash 757. Joshua Williamson writing with Rafa Sandavol on the art. This is the start of the final arc of Williamson's run, the Legion of Zoom, and I'm sure Matt's got hot takes on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I like the issue. Probably a fair bit. That was not perfect. There's definitely things, but
it's good. It's a little bit redundant. I just feel like every third arc is people sneaking into Central to attack it while Barry's busy doing Barry things.
I think
so.
I like the idea that Barry's obsessed with finding Thawne, so that's what he's doing at the start. I thought he kind of just gave up kind of easily, where he just kind of, because he goes back home, he realized he was supposed to meet everyone for dinner. They're already asleep. Iris kind of talks them down. They end up, the kids get back up anyway. And by kids I mean Wallace and Avery. But and it's like, it basically, he's like, oh yeah, maybe I should actually try and focus on my life again for a little bit. And I just kind of felt like, okay, I'm okay with that being a plot beat, usually in the grand scale of things, but we're in the final arc here, and Thawne has just made his kind of like big move to like start whatever his plan is, and the fact that the big moves, actually the plan itself starts by the end of the issue, makes Barry feel a little bit silly that he wanted to try and be normal again. We're going to work and like doing normal work stuff, but it sets up this thing where when he goes back to work, there was a murder. Which turns out to be on the night of Rebirth issue 1, when Wally came back. There was a murder where a husband murdered his wife, and the kid is kind of left thinking that his dad's innocent, and obviously this harkens back to Barry's own childhood.
Barry's own.
And Barry's like, wait, and because the guy confessed, and the cops are like happy to just throw in the towel and say, okay, well, it's done, the guy confessed, nothing to do here. But Barry's like, no, the evidence should still be processed. So he speeds off and looks at the crime scene. He wants to like figure this out, and lo and behold, when he looks into things, there may be a hint that maybe Thawne had something to do. Because I do wonder, did Thawne intentionally do this as a breadcrumb kind of thing,
right?
To prod at Barry. But just as he's ready to start looking into this more, he hears from Captain Singh that the turtle's attacking the station. So he runs off to go and help with that. But while he's on his way, he gets another call or hears that over the police radio that Trickster's attacking somewhere, and it's right outside his apartment. And then Captain Cold's attacking Star Labs with Glider. And then, of course, Grodd shows up. Where's Flash Museum? There you go. That's where he shows up. So he speeds to Iris and the kids because he's like, okay, if they're attacking all these places that are all very specifically aimed at him, they're all Barry-related places. He gets everyone out of Dodge and says, no, like, you guys have to be safe. And the end of the book, the end of the issue is this pretty nice page. It's where Barry and Iris and that are in the middle in a circle, and like the page is split into 4 sections, and it's the 4 different villains doing their thing. And it's like Barry, run damn it, run kind of thing moment. I kind of like the escalation here, the build up of everyone attacking at once. It feels like Zoom does have a plan. The Thawne does have. That's a Zoom, Professor Zoom. I don't want to mix it up with
Reverse Flash.
Yeah. I appreciate this sort of the build here. This feels like a solid issue, sort of like with Barry being hit. I think, like I said, the only problem I really have with it is that it feels like he let his guard down just kind of suddenly in this issue, only for it to be like him to be shocked by the appearance of everyone, like 10 pages later. Felt kind of weird, but other than that, I like the how big it all feels with everyone attacking at the same time in unison. Feels like Zoom's got some master plan. Hopefully, the payoff to it works, but
I really like that breadcrumb of and Williamson tying it back into Rebirth, that he got so distracted by Wally's appearance that he never processed the evidence, so it might have been an open and shut case, but we don't know, so I like that still drives him. There's still this balance of right and wrong.
It's an interesting little sort of plot thread to put in here at the start of this arc, where it's for the most, because we expect this arc to be very action packed, a lot of big stuff with Thawne. I do wonder how it's going to play into ultimately where the arc goes, with whatever the mystery is behind this. Like, it was Thawne behind this murder, or is it just a random thing that Barry, ultimately can't give a happy ending? But I feel like it's going to come up in some way. But Sandoval's art's pretty solid as well. I thought.
Pretty good for Flash. I like the colors here, especially that last page. It kind of divides up amongst the color lines. So like Turtle's green, and you got the reds at play towards the bottom, and gold and blue with Cold and Glider. So No, the art's really good. It's a fine issue. You know what I mean? I'm here until it ends now, so it's not like I'm going anywhere. But it's a little bit frustrating how up and down this book can be.
Yeah, I mean, I think almost to its benefit, Flash was a lot less than fine for a good year or something like that. The fine feels pretty good right now.
yeah. And that's why, like, so you said I might have some not too many hot takes on it. It's just I do feel like Williamson is getting a bit redundant on these plot features to where they're not all the same, but man, it's his go-to of the I'll attack at one time kind of vibe. But I guess after Paradox, everything's better than that. So, you know, but no, yeah, again, it's fine. Like I don't have much complaints about it, but it's also not like amazing. So yeah.
I think what I liked about the overall feel of it did generally feel like a Flash issue, which is a weird thing to say, but it's for a time there. I didn't. I mean, not that it didn't feel like a Flash issue in the sense that it felt like a Flash comic. All the zany things that were happening were very Flash-esque ideas, but I don't know. It didn't like this felt more like at home Flash again. Kind of stuff.
It's back in a familiar place. We're not dealing with all these different forces and paradoxes and this. This is a straight up. All the Flash villains are attacking at once, and they all are deeply personal places to bury. Yeah, it doesn't get much more Flash than that, right?
Yeah. So, we'll see how the rest of this arc goes. What are you giving this issue?
I'm gonna give this 7.5.
Yeah, I'll give it a solid 7. I think perfectly enjoyable. Not perfect, but it's definitely a lot better than how I felt on Flash for a while. Obviously, I mean, this is not the first time I felt this way. That neck snap was definitely the turning point. But yeah, so that's Flash. Hawkman 25, Rob Venditti writing with Marco Castiello on the art. So take it away.
Oh boy, what a 25th issue, right?
Yeah.
So
exciting stuff.
This kind of puts into focus like the whole Qatar Deathbringer saga, and that it seems like there's more at play here because we start to really build it. It's almost biblical in the sense of, someone was keeping an eye on Qatar, and it wasn't this Lord of the Void, right? Unless I completely misread it.
No, I agree. It's very similar sounding. And then this is some really smart lettering here, where it uses the exact same style of kind of a wobbly bubble. I'll describe it as.
But inverted colors. So it was a Lord of the Void.
Yeah.
Right. It's a black bubble with white lettering. This is a typical bubble, but with the same
but the same style, which makes me feel like this is the Lord's opposite number, his rival. Right.
And that they were keeping an eye on Qatar Deathbringer, and that when She-Ra got involved, it was almost kind of like an Adam and Eve type situation.
Yeah, she kind of got banished.
She got banished along with him, and that's what connected them. And she's like, well, I really didn't do anything but kind of appear to him, and at the end, it's what you wanted. He's like, but no, but you interfered, and now nothing can be the same. And so it adds this extra layer to She-Ra and Qatar that no matter what they do, no matter where they're reborn, it's because of this intrinsic. She acted, and it's almost her own independence.
Yeah, and it gives her this real incentive to, I mean, beyond just being a good person, which we know, she's a hero. It gives her an incentive to help Qatar, repay his debt of all the souls, because she's told here that she will not be looked upon again until his debt is repaid. And if you somehow manage to get back here when that's done, I'll consider that's atonement. You'll be welcome back into the fold. But if not, this is it then. This is all you're going to do for eternity. Just reincarnate with this man.
Right. And so I'm getting look, I'm not a biblical scholar whatsoever. Like I'm a filthy heathen. But from the mythology pieces that I understand, I almost feel like this is like fallen angel stuff. The fact that they have wings and they're being cast out of places.
It definitely feels that way, yeah.
Right? Almost as if Qatar is this Lucifer type where he fell out of favor, but now he's, trying to make things right,
it's interesting because obviously I'd say Shira here seems to be more of the Lucifer in the sense that she's like one of the firstborn. She's one of the chosen and is actually physically banished by what we're assuming is the good entity here.
Like
the god, so to speak.
I don't want to call it the one above all, which is DC's. That's their plug and play for a big G god, but that's what it feels like. And then when you start to add in all the multiversal stuff, like, is this one of those, like, is this another one of Perpetua's people? Because remember, we were told with Perpetua, there were multiple verses, right? And this was hers, and she wanted to create one of chaos and whatnot. It almost makes you wonder if this is one of those, or if it's above that or below that. Like, there's so much of Venditti goes in this first chunk. And this is even before we get to the Lord of the Void stuff.
This is like the first 2 pages, 3 if you count the double pages, 2 pages.
It's so layered in this mythology. And then again, I keep bringing this up. I keep comparing it to Jason Aaron's Thor, but I feel there's a lot of not similar beats, but what it's doing with the character, playing with the history.
Themes.
Yeah, playing with the history and who they are in different parts of their life. Like if we got a Future Hawk story, I wouldn't be surprised just to see where they go after Carter and Shira, But no, I'm just getting these vibes, and so it gets back to the Lord of the Void, and basically he knew Carter's sense of history, and that he could play that against him. So he's left these clues all across the multiverse in time and space that will always lead Qatar back to him.
Yes, because he can't get out into their world, but he can bring them into his.
Right. And if they have them both, then he can use their whatever power is, making them, be reborn across time and space. He can harness that and come out.
And it definitely plays with how personal this is. He quotes his own, the Lord of the Void quotes Qatar's own journal at him.
Mm-hmm. And so he's been staging this for a while. This is all it's been. Every step of this way for Carter has led back to the Lord of the Void. And it also almost makes me feel like we're getting close to the debt. Him being Hawkman has, all the lives that he saved and whatnot. It almost feels like Lord of the Void knows this point was coming. He needs to get him before that comes.
I can
it's almost
see
like a desperation play.
Part of the end of this story being that, yes, he has fulfilled his debt, but he wants to keep reincarnating because he knows he can still be a hero across time anyway.
Right.
Just because he knows he can do more.
Right. But it feels like this isn't the first time one of Carter's souls, for lack of a better term, has been here.
No, you could be right.
There is a process that the Deathbringers, when they attack Carter and Shira and they string them up on this altar of, to harness their power and whatnot.
Yeah, and the way the Lord of the Void knows about the connection with the mace and just completely just like
shuts it off.
That connection.
Which again, that was another Thor thing. I'm thinking, well, now Hawkman's unworthy.
Yeah, I got that too.
So
we've kind of brushed over one of my favorite moments of this whole issue. Is Hawkman, he throws his mace at the Lord. He's like, no, nothing. He takes it. It just catches it. It's no big deal. And he just says, no, you're mine. And Hawkman goes, sorry, I'm spoken for. And then you have a full page splash of Shira, coming into attack with a mace. Even gods die. It's a fantastic page.
Yeah. And then he catches her, and you're like, oh man. And then we really see that's when he, affects the mace and basically severs that connection. But Shira finds out that the Lord of the Void can bleed.
She takes her own helmet off and just starts stabbing him in the arm with her helmet.
Yeah, it's pretty great. and as we learned in Predator, if it bleeds, we can kill it. So
it's kind of what this is playing on here.
Yeah.
Because he's like, how do we even fight him? And she goes, oh, he bleeds. It's a start.
Yep. And yeah, but he ends up beating them down, and they get harnessed, and their power starts to charge him up.
Yeah, this
And
is where
that's
he
pretty dire.
grabs one of the slaves and kind of not quite eats, consumes its energy.
Yeah.
And is like, this is what you were bringing me all these things for, all those times. Every soul you brought was a harvest. They're my food essentially. And it's like, all that you've done, you've just made me more powerful. So I'm good, basically.
Yeah, and he's charging up, and also on the design of the Lord of the Void, I like that he has these big old bone wings, because it sets that opposite. As you're saying, the voice in the beginning, it makes me wonder if it's going to be him, but flipped.
Like,
so they'll
as
have
it
the
should
full
be,
wings.
yeah, because
Right.
She-Ra at the start there had proper wings, like traditional like hawk wings,
Right.
but
Right.
they were
Angel
a natural
wings.
part of it. Yeah, you could say angel
Yeah.
wings, but
Right.
they were stripped from her as part of that punishment.
Right. But yeah, and then at the end, there's just a thing from wrestling I want to bring up that I couldn't get away from. There's a wrestler that goes by the Murder Hawk Monster, and his slogan or his catchphrase is "Everybody dies." So I gotta wonder if Venditti is a wrestling fan, because just the way that this ends up with a giant hawk monster.
I mean, you didn't
With
get that
the
with
quote.
the Green Lantern thing.
Yeah, well, to know the four horsemen and the four corpsmen, that's one thing, but to bring something modern in now,
Sure.
you know what I mean? So everybody dies kicked in. I was like, oh man, this gigantic monster is basically Lance Archer,
Fair enough.
But yeah.
Obviously, that was lost on me. It worked fine anyway.
Yeah, but it still works fine. It's still a great moment at the end, and it feels like all is lost. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Earlier in the show,
channeling their energy into the obelisk, and it's like, with the power of all your lives, I'll rule supreme.
Right. You brought up how 25 didn't feel like this. They didn't make it this extra big issue, and it almost doesn't feel like an issue 25. Although this is such a big moment. Right?
I was disappointed because I could have done with an extra 4 or 5 pages of this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, it's over already. What?
Yeah.
It went in so fast. I was like, where's the rest?
Yeah.
And not in like necessarily a bad way, but just I really wanted more right now.
Yeah, but I like the restraint that Venditti pulls here. That it's just part of the arc that's going on, but there's still this big huge moment, right? We get the revelation about She-Ra and about how she independently, when she got involved, it damned her along with him, and that here we have that we found out what the Lord of the Void's actual game is, and it's to be reborn in outside of the void, whatever we're gonna call that.
Yeah, that seems about right.
So I do like that it feels monumental in that story wise, but not like, this is a big huge issue and you're gonna need it.
Yeah, I mean forward. It's huge in the sense of this arc. Like this is the second part of this arc now, I would say. Mm-hmm. Definitely feels like the culmination of the run so far. Like this is building on everything and paying off all these things from the first arc. So there's all this calling back. So it feels huge and monumental in its own right. But this does just feel like part of that giant arc rather than a particularly special issue.
It doesn't feel like this is the point we've been leading to either. That's why I was getting at with I feel like the Lord of the Void's bringing up all of the souls. It's getting like he had to act now because we're getting towards the end of that. But it almost as Carter's purpose has been renewed here, learning all of this as he does. And like this time, he has this knowledge going forward, that he can make this difference still. And if he overbalances his scales, what does that mean? If he starts getting into the positive, then is it going to keep this guy trapped there even longer? Is it going to overpower the other one? And that's problems as well, But I know Venditti's just killing it on Hawkman. Like I can't laud it enough.
Yeah, it's another fantastic issue that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm giving this one a 9 again, because this book is just so good.
Yep, 9 as well. It's from the art on down.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
All right. Supergirl 42, Jody Houser writing with Rachael Stott on the art. This is obviously the only book that actually came out last week. And I mean, me and Matt could have just showed up for like a 10-minute episode and just be like, hey everyone, welcome to the show. It's got to have a Supergirl.
Yeah, Supergirl. Bit maddening that I don't have this issue physically. Bittersweet, because I was really enjoying this team of Jody Houser and Rachael Stott. And it just kind of, I don't want to say it's a fitting end because I feel like there's so much more, but it does its best to wrap up what came before this with the, Supergirl infected, there we go, the infected storyline.
Yeah.
And her coming to terms with it. I just wish we had more from this team.
It's a really solid issue. I mean, honestly, I have very little thoughts on the issue itself. It's it's fine. Supergirl saves some people. She's fighting the general in the suit, and ultimately the general helps her save all these people because that's important. And then she tries to arrest her. If I have a complaint about the issue, it's that it felt like it was missing a page. There was a moment where she wants to arrest Supergirl, and all the people they've just saved from this building that was flooding in the storm, basically saying, "No, you're not doing that," and they all circle Supergirl to save Supergirl and protect her. It's this, it's meant to be this really touching moment, and I felt like it was really missing like a full page spread of like turning the page and seeing the full scope of all these people around her. Instead, you just kind of see the first couple of people sort of get around her. It's not the big moment that it should be. So that's like my one like comics construction complaint of the story. But otherwise, it's fine. It does what it's told. What it's supposed to do. It ends with Supergirl flying off with Crypto saying, like I've got work to do. It's never over. I'm always Supergirl. Blah blah. Which is it's almost the exact same page you get in any book that's ending that shouldn't be ending, where everyone wants the character to continue, but the book's not continuing, so you just have to deal with it. Yeah,
it leaves it open a bit.
But it's basically what I said last time, which is like they keep doing this where books like Supergirl don't get to, or writers or teams on books like this don't get a chance to actually do anything. They're just there to kind of have this weird arc. Jody Houser especially seems to always end up on Supergirl right before it's going to get cancelled. It's a shame. They never get the attention and focus that they're supposed to get.
No.
And
it's a shame, but I did like the moment with Kara where she's like, fine, take me in, but you need to help me save these people first. There's a hurricane. We're in the eye of it right now, and it's going to get worse again. So I like how she talked the general down, and then the people come to her aid. So I do like that. It's a very Superman family, trope, I guess. But she doesn't settle it with fists. She does go to talk to her, to the general. And I know if you're going to complain about it, the general just feels like super broad strokey, Lex Light almost, that I feel like we could have had some more development, had this kept going.
Oh yeah,
I don't think it's a decent character.
She was basically introduced last issue, so it's not like she's had much time to really.
Nothing much here, so no. But again, it's a fine finish. But yeah, I really wanted more of this team, and it's a shame. So if they do work on anything together, I will check it out. So I enjoyed these. What was this? 4 or 5 issues? Was it 6?
Yeah, I think it was more like 6. Cause I think maybe your mind skewed a little bit because it was like the infected stuff, and then these last few that have not been infected.
Yeah. But whatever it was, I enjoyed for the most part.
Yeah, I think Houser always had the voice down, and I think Stott's art always really complemented to how Supergirl comics should feel. It was surprisingly enjoyable, given that it was kind of just completely taken over by a tie-in idea to this ultimately kind of meaningless. It's kind of a meaningless tie-in, because Supergirl, as much as she was like infected in You're the Villain and all that stuff, it never really felt like she was actually a major part of it. So it's in hindsight, looking at how her book was completely taken over by it, it kind of like, because we've already forgotten about You're the Villain. You're the Villain's such an afterthought at this point, and the fact that Supergirl's still like dealing with the ramifications of it just kind of feels like, yeah, this book got hijacked and now it's ending. And
yeah, I mean, sure, but at the same time, like, she kind of was only infected because it was meant for Superman, if you're looking in the story wise. So the fact that Hauser tried to play with that and how it wasn't, it worked differently on her because it wasn't meant for her. So in her brain, she's doing heroic stuff. Like I thought she did the best with what she was given.
Oh, she absolutely did. Towers is a great writer, and I don't envy some of the jobs that DC seem to give her. Rather than just let her tell a story, she's the fill-in writer to end a run bizarrely. And they've done that to her a couple of times now. So I really hope that she is given a proper book that she's allowed to actually tell her own story on and have a run of some kind. It would be very much nice to see.
So it would.
But what are you giving this Supergirl issue?
I'm gonna give this a 7. 7. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'd give it a 7 too. It's a perfectly fine read. Art's solid. Yeah, there you go. Supergirl. Young Justice issue 16. Bryan Michael Bendis writing, and David F. Walker as well. With Scott Godlewski on the art. This is Bart Allen given as an exposition dump as to
not what I thought it was going to be, given how the last issue ended.
Yeah.
About Bart's adventures through the multiverse, when really his journey isn't much different than Connor's, where he was fighting Mirror Master when whatever happened with Rebirth happened. And he's gone through some of these different ones looking for his friends, realizing that where he came from no longer exists, and they're kind of exiles. So I guess that's more on me than it is on the team at play, because I thought this was going to be Bart finding out some things about the multiverse and kind of what's going on.
I don't think it is on you. I think this is anticlimactic. Yeah? I feel like the tease last week was okay because Connor's story was okay. This explained everything, but it wasn't like super exciting. He's been hiding in Gem World for whatever years,
Right.
So the tease last week where he's like, oh wait, you never actually explained where you came from, like where have you been all this time? What's going on with you, Bart? And it being like this big tease for the next issue, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to finally get some really juicy stuff about how Rebirth affected Bart and why he's around and so on. And this issue, it was like a random fight with Connor and this monster from Star Labs, and
that was pretty fun.
Yeah,
like because the monster, it explains itself, but it still just wants to eat people. So you think you're going one way, and it's like, oh no, he's misunderstood. No, but he still wants to eat people. So I thought that was a nice, fun break. But I will say I did like how Bendis and Walker dealt with Bart's trauma and all this, and that the reason he keeps moving is so he doesn't have to stop and think about things. And that's such an impulse thing, right? Like from all the impulse that I've read in Bart Allen, is he's moving faster than his brain because he doesn't want to deal with reality. Because this was a guy that was raised in virtual reality, and they touch on it here that he doesn't even know how old he is because of his hypermetabolism. He could be 2, he could be 19, he could be 34, right? But because of all the Flash time travel-y aspects and multiverse stuff at play, he's kind of lost track, and that's really hit him, and he just keeps jumping around so he doesn't have to think about it. So I did like that, but I do feel like there was that bait and switch where, okay, we're going to get to the nitty-gritty. So when we got to that, him saying like, oh, well, I went to this other reality, and I'm like, well, this is just more of what Connor went through. This is not really different.
I think it's not just that. I was already kind of sick of the multiverse hopping stuff in this book from before. So him thinking he's went to a just another Earth, or he's in between universes and whatever. Like, and then especially since it didn't even necessarily feel like he was in a different Earth at a certain point. It felt like he just went to the future, and it was like, okay, the Young Justice all died heroically at some point, and it's a mystery where they went or what happened to them. Yep. And okay, maybe that's what the story's going to be now. It's going to be about the Young Justice trying to figure out why this has happened, and it kind of ends in a similar way where once Tim shows up to talk to the two of them at the campfire, they're like, okay, let's go to the Hall of Justice and talk to the Justice League about what happened to us. But yeah, he's in like this future where Bart's he's in Arkham Asylum, and he's with like old woman Harley Quinn, who's
his hair still dyed.
Yeah, hair still dyed. She's still prodding at him, and it feels like a nightmare scene rather than like an actual future. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But he actually does escape because this is the same world, of course, that the Young Justice has died in, and he's asking questions. He's trying to claim that he's Bart, and she's like, "Nah, they all went missing years ago. You can't be Bart." And he escapes. He uses his super speed to get out, and he runs. And he basically says that as he was like jumping back and forth in time looking for Young Justice, that's how he ended up at the start of the book, where he ran into like, Tim and all that in Metropolis, and it's kind of underwhelming. Yeah. I guess is the best way to put it. And I appreciate the focus. I appreciate that this issue focuses on really just Tim shows up eventually, but it's really just the two characters and mostly Bart. Yeah. And I really appreciate that because I think this book's been kind of lacking that and maybe had a bit too many characters across the board every single issue. But I am very underwhelmed by what the actual reveals are and what the story is, and it still kind of feels wheel spinny in terms of there's not really a great answer to this. Like, it kind of felt like early on that Bendis had something to build to that kind of like tied it all in with why Young Justice is the way it is and how it all ties into Rebirth, and ultimately it just kind of feels like it keeps coming up with more timelines and more stuff to make it confusing.
Yeah, I feel like he's just stringing us along now because, I mean, the first arc with Gemworld had, talks about 7 crises and all this different multiversal stuff, and it really set the bar high. And now we're just getting to the point where it's like, oh yeah, Rebirth happened, and we got lost. But I do like at the end where Drake shows up, and hopefully there's not another bait and switch where, we're just gonna get what happened with him and spoiler, because I really want to know what happened to them in between Tech and Young Justice, because they seem to know more than what's being let on.
I mean, so I'm less worried about that stuff because that's not going back to Rebirth. That's something that just happened between a story that we liked and where they are. So it feels like it's more of a personal thing. So I'm hoping that can pan out a bit better.
Yeah, I hope that's not multiversal stuff, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I hope what they find out has something to do with I guess you'd have to go multiversal because you're involving Connor and Bart, but something that they uncovered that's going to explain like Steph finding out that some time ago she had a baby, right?
I feel like it's feeling more and more like you said, stringing along, and I kind of agree with that sentiment. Yeah. It kind of feels like fluff in a way where the book doesn't necessarily have a purpose, and it's just like we want a Young Justice book, so Bendis just keeps writing stories with these characters, and it feels like it's kind of directionless, or worse yet, it feels like it's pretending to have a direction but doesn't actually feel like it has one. And I think, looking at his work at DC so far, I think his Superman stuff has definitely had a direction. It's definitely had something to say. I think Naomi on its own was a really good story that spent time interested in this new character. And I think Legion and Young Justice are the ones that kind of feel a bit more like up in the air. And Legion's earlier on, so it's not in the same place yet where it feels as aimless. But I have a concern that it might get there where it feels like we want these things to exist, so they exist, but they exist without much of a reason or real sort of I don't know, just like point, I guess.
Yeah, I know he has a Rip Hunter-esque board because this all makes sense to him. From his Superman to Young Justice to Legion with Naomi, they all kind of cross over at times, and I would just like more concrete with some of them. Even in Legion, where I just feel like that's kind of gotten away from him. The fact that we're getting, I mean, as much as I love the gimmick of, these one-page origins for each of the characters, that's a issue that we're losing for storytelling.
Yeah. Honestly,
two issues, Matt.
2 issues, yeah.
2 issues.
The concept of like every page being like a different member of the Legion is the exact opposite of what I think that book needs to do.
Yeah, well, no, that's a great idea for an annual.
Sure, right? Yeah.
Or a guidebook kind of deal. But now we're getting away from storytelling that he wants to tell, and it's all well and fine that John's up there and it's like his college experience and whatnot, but to tell you the truth right now, I can't remember what happened in issue 6. I remember the Gold Lantern was there, and I remember that made it a hot book, and there's Monster Boy, But actually, what happened? I'm gonna have to.
I remember how. No, I
the next
remember.
one comes out.
I remember how it ended. It was, Earth's water was coming back with the trident. Like, I remember the basic broad stroke of it.
Just on that there, Matt, you were like, oh, yeah, okay, we're doing, John's college years. It's kind of weird to do that when we didn't do the high school years, right?
Right. No, it's very much so.
It's a strange choice, and
he's being around the universe, and now he's up in space, and I don't know. I've been pretty positive on Bendis, but I definitely feel like those two books need a little bit more focus, and maybe he's doing like too much.
It's maybe not even Bendis' fault here, but the editorial, like, okay, we've been promising a Legion book for years at this point. We really need to do one. Bendis, do you want to take a crack at it? And he's just gone, I guess. But he didn't really. He didn't approach them with, I've got a great idea.
Oh,
for
sure.
the Legion.
I feel the reverse for Young Justice versus Legion, because when he first started, the stack of books he was getting into, I remember he posted that picture. There was a ton of Legion stuff there. So I definitely feel like Legion's something that he had a passion for, and maybe it's gotten away. Whereas what you're saying about Legion, I would apply to Young Justice, where he's kind of like, hey, we have all these young heroes. You're pretty good with young heroes. You created Miles Morales. You want to... He's like, sure.
It's kind of this weird thing where I love his Superman stuff, right? Like, Romita's art aside in action.
Yeah.
And that one arc that we really didn't like Superman stuff's been great through and through. I think it's all had something to say. It's all had this great vision and focus to it. Whereas Young Justice, and to a lesser extent Legion, but Legion obviously is only 6 issues in, so I'll give it a bit more time to kind of find its feet. Young Justice though, like, it feels like I keep getting like solid rompy issues and it keeps teasing the possibility of something that pulls it all together and makes it feel like it, because Bendis is at his best when there is like a focus and it feels like everything is kind of continuing on from each other.
It kind of feels like and I'm being very diplomatic with my wording here because I don't want it to just seem like I'm jumping on the hating on Bendis. I'm trying to be neutral here. Pete, what you just described there is kind of what how we talk about the last arc and this current arc of Justice League, where it's like it's fun, right? But it's but Justice League knows it's just being a fun book. It's not pretending to be anything else, so you're okay with that. Whereas it sounds like Young Justice feels like if it just embraced being that fun thing, like fluffy fun, that you'd be more okay with it. But because it has this feeling of, oh no, there's going to be real deep meaning stuff. It's going to have ramifications that you've got these higher expectations on it.
Possibly. I mean, I think if they tried to do that with this, I'd still be frustrated because they do need to explain why these characters are here and how they're back and why they're this way. There's some weight to just doing this from the get-go, regardless of what the book was trying to promise us, I suppose. But there's probably parts to that. There's probably definitely some of that in there. I don't know. It's just still a bit frustrating, and I'm hoping that it can turn around over time. But it's kind of like Bendis has his good books and his bad books, and I feel like this is feeling less like his Avengers and less like his Ultimate Spider-Man, whereas Superman does feel like maybe his running some of his better books, and this maybe feels more akin to, and I didn't read much of it, but this maybe feels more like his Guardians of the Galaxy, which existed because Bendis hadn't done Guardians of the Galaxy yet, but it isn't ultimately that important or anyone cares about it.
I mean, and that ultimately tied in with his X-Men run, which this kind of feels the same for, where there's a lot of these big ideas, but you just keep getting strung along to ultimately, that the whole young X-Men story just kind of resolved itself in some way.
I liked his X-Men stuff more than this Young Justice, though.
No, but I know. But what I'm talking about is the stringing along. Like, there was this mystery of why can't they go home, right? And in that, it felt more natural because of timey-wimey stuff and what he did with Eva Bell, creating that character that could freeze time. But it kept, when I was reading that, it kept leading to this, Beast is trying to get them home, but they can't figure it out. Here, the mystery's inverted of what happened to their home, and they don't know if he knows quite yet. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but
out of interest, are you anywhere near like giving up on the book? Just no. With the way that you kind of
no. I mean, I'm still reading it. It's just. It feels like this should be a book when it was announced that could have been like amongst the favorites every time it was coming out, and instead it's kind of in this weird murky place. And part of it feels like the editorial side of things, where he can't just go and answer a lot of things because it's supposed to be stuff that ties into various other things. So it feels like there's a hindrance on it. And I maybe combine that with being a bit too many characters or whatever, or maybe it's just not as good as his other work, and that's something that it could just be that possible. But it definitely feels like it's hindered by a lot of like, oh well, we can't explain too much of this because this would contradict Rebirth, or we can't explain too much of this because what we're going to do in Death Metal is going to fix a lot of continuity stuff. It feels like a book that exists despite what continuity says is supposed to be going on right now, and the book has still not gotten over the fact that it's trying to still kind of define how it's getting away with it.
What issue are we on now?
This was, what, 16?
So we're, well over a year's worth of issues at this point, and it's still kind of dealing with why the team exists in this continuity.
Yeah, we're
well,
still
and
there.
that's who I feel how he picked the team, right? These are all these heroes that haven't been around, So instead of doing his own Teen Titans, he's doing this.
Which is fine, but like, I mean, the first arc of this book should have been like why they're all
resolving
here.
These.
Yeah, and instead
and
it was
you
like
get on to telling stories with them.
But then it was like let's immediately go to Gem World and not address any of it, and like some of that was fun, and I think stuff after that was more fun. But the more I look back at the run in hindsight at this point, I'm kind of like, I feel like you've just been stalling. There's been just lots and lots of stalling.
This is for everyone who says Bendis decompresses way too much.
Yeah.
This sounds like a key example of that.
Well, to me, this is not decompression though. This is just the story's not there yet. Like, I think decompression is very different from what I'm describing here.
Decompression in the sense of we should be at a point already where the team has been explained, but it's being spread out over little drip feed bits here and there over all of this thing. That's decompression in that sense.
I mean, I guess, but I don't even feel like it's decompressing that story. I just feel like it's avoiding it. Up until these last two issues, it kind of wasn't even a factor in the book for 2 arcs or something like that.
And then he's stopped to pause to explain all that, and yeah, I don't know. I kind of just want. I understand why they're there, but I just want them moving on doing Young Justice stuff.
Yeah, I feel like instead of being a compelling story that kind of answers and brings together some sort of like good reason why they're all here and where they all came from and remember things, instead it feels like this really long checklist of like, okay, we have to address this. So instead of feeling like a story, it feels like oh, we have to like adhere to all these bullet points. And I guess I'm feeling the wire work a little bit too much instead of just feeling a story that has these elements in it. So I didn't expect to be so negative on this. I mean, ultimately, this issue when I rate it it's going to be like a 6. It's not terrible.
I have it at a 7. I still enjoyed it, and I love all the art stuff. But again, going in wanting to know like how that last issue left off to this, it was a big letdown.
Yeah.
So,
it feels a bit too fluffy. I wanted it to feel more important, and it's not getting there. But there's positive qualities. The art's pretty solid. I mean, the only thing I don't like about Godlewski's art is that I think sometimes his mouths are a little bit too, I guess, anime, for lack of a better.
It doesn't bother me. It's, fine by me.
From memory, his mouth's always felt kind of thin.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely.
I think he means by anime.
Yeah.
I'm thinking specifically whenever they do sort of a motion where they're kind of like sort of thinking and pressing their lips together. Like,
it's just a one line.
Yeah, or it's like I don't know. When they're in like sort of full talking, it's fine. But whenever they get the mouths closed, it feels a bit iffy. But I guess that's just this ended up being kind of a sprawling conversation of why it's not necessarily as good as it should be, which is a shame. But hey, where are we? I had to get my list up. Batman and the Outsiders, issue 14, Bryan Hill and Dexter Soy. And it's funny because we just talked about Young Justice, and I feel like Batman and the Outsiders is kind of more hitting what I feel like Young Justice should be, whereas it feels more cohesive and it's going at a nice pacing, and I feel like it's building upon what it's been doing.
Yeah, my one problem with this is this doesn't feel like the same Batman that's doing stuff over with Joker War. You know what
sure.
I mean? Like this feels like it's in a pocket dimension, and not that I mind that because I really enjoy this pocket dimension, but
I feel
But
like that's a problem is age old. Is ever since we've had multiple Bat
Yeah.
books, Superman books, this crops up all the time, every so often. Where
oh yeah. But I don't know if it's because Hill kind of plays as Batman. I don't want to say as a villain, but he's definitely an antagonist towards Jefferson to Black Lightning for the majority of this book. And so to see them constantly butt heads, and here now they're kind of on the same page, and there's someone else at play.
and let's not
that
gloss
they're
over.
talking to.
Yeah, let's not gloss over that Soy's back on art though, because
Yep.
oh boy, it's back to its full glory. I love it.
Mhm.
So yeah, Jefferson's powers have increased a little bit because of the device that Bruce strapped him into last issue, and ultimately he wants him to use his powers to sense where Ra's al Ghul's technodrome is. That's what I'm calling it.
That's fine.
And so he's like, okay, that's a good idea. And Bruce is like still holding things close to his chest, and Sophia's there with them too. But he's like, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and do something else first, Ton. Yeah, they're basically going to scare, like, basically prove to Raz that they can like take something from him. So they
Yep.
show up and like beat up a bunch of their thugs. Obviously not killing them because they're heroes, but
Right.
basically he gets Sophia to implode a building on top of a Lazarus pit to basically take the Lazarus pit away from Raz.
I do like that. That's a big fu to him.
Oh, it is. It's pretty sinister in a non-evil way.
So here's the thing: is our Lazarus pits still just one use only, and then he has to get rid of them?
I don't think so.
or-
I think you can
okay.
use them.
Because that was a thing for a little bit. I forget who was writing, but they were only one use, and then Ra's would implode them on their own. So if they are one use only, right, and he has a limited number of them, Batman coming and basically being like, hey, guess what? You're not that immortal anymore. Kind of adds a little darkness to him.
Yeah, it's almost, it's like getting close to a kill, but it's not really, because this guy's immortal. He should have died a long time ago. His natural life
Right.
should have ended ages ago, so it's
Right,
kind of whatever. Meanwhile, the kids have got a choice to follow Shiva to try and find Raz her way, and Katana's like trying to talk them out of it, but ultimately let it be their choice. And all that dialogue I really enjoyed, and obviously the big reveal of the issue is after they've imploded this Lazarus pit, and like Bruce is talking to someone in comms. He's like, I think we've got a lead on where Raz is. The twist is that he's actually talking to Shiva. So Shiva like torturing this like evil banker who does like all of Raz's money laundering or whatever. And obviously Cass is like, no, we're not going to let her kill, because it feels quite dark at first, where Duke's like, hey, like she may kill this guy, and Cass is like, no, I won't let her. But then it turns out that Batman knows that the kids have went with her, and Shiva is actually kind of playing along to Batman's kind of sensibilities and plan. So it turns out that they're actually kind of working on the same page, ultimately.
Yep.
So they've got a location for Raz, and they're off to get him at the end of the issue, coming from two fronts. But obviously, I assume they're going to like meet up in the middle, next issue. But
Yeah.
I like that reveal. There was something really fun about
ahead.
the reveal that Batman was actually talking to Shiva and like in communication with her the whole time. Yeah, nice touch.
Yep, I like it because it almost seems like I don't know if Bruce did manipulate her to manipulate the kids. So ultimately they're doing what Batman wants still. And I hope that causes problems if that gets revealed to Cassandra going, you're not letting us be us, So I do like that goes.
It may not be as manipulative.
Manipulative.
That's the word. That
Nailed it.
I like the idea that like he wanted the kids to make their own choice and just knew they would ultimately make the right choice. So he's just kind of
Right.
he's given them like a short leash, or a long leash rather, but he's ultimately they're all going to coalesce in the one place again because the goals are the same. So I mean, you could argue it's the illusion of freedom. I would argue it's freedom in actuality, but ultimately it was always going to lead them back.
I feel this is the similar problem that I had with Tynion's Batman, where we're playing both of it, and we have both very different interpretations of Batman, as I'm seeing through here, where I inherently don't trust him. Right? And you're just like, it's fine. I'm like, I don't know, man. Bruce is up to some shady stuff. But I just like how he'll pieces these really well. And this issue, like, usually I'd have a problem if I breeze through them, but this is always so fun to read. Like, I just read through it quick anyways. It kind of, not that it's at the same quality, but when Johns was writing Green Lantern, I would rip through that book. And it was almost a waste of a month of a book because I'd read it so damn fast.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of how I feel with The Outsiders is I get so excited to read it, and it goes so quick, and the pacing's there. And this one's kind of more action-oriented as well, because they are taking down some league guys that were defending the Lazarus Pit. But yeah, you're right. That reveal at the end was really good, because at the beginning you're like, well, who the hell's Bruce talking to? It's not, clearly it can't be Shiva. And then that's who it ends up being at the end, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, no, I like the reveal at the end. It was like a fun kind of like, because sometimes it reveals that Batman had a plan or Batman was behind something, and it feels a little bit. That's was kind of one of these little ones where it felt, of course, you can sort of laugh it off a little bit and just enjoy the Batman kind of orchestration of it, if you will. But no, and the art's phenomenal. Dexter Soy absolutely kills it. I love the coloring as well. Is so good. It's everything I was saying about the art before last issue. I had a month off, but we're back to full on Soy art, and I'm very much pleased about it. What are you giving this issue, Matt?
I'm going to give this an 8.
I will concur with the solid 8 out of 10, which will take us to the last book of the week. Lois Lane, issue 12, Greg Rucka writing with Mike Perkins on the art, and this is wrapping up this 12-issue story. Connor can finally tag back in after, I think, 3 issues?
Hot tag. Connor gets a hot tag.
Was it 3?
Yeah, it was 3.
It was Young Justice.
What was before Young Justice?
Supergirl.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I spoke on Young Justice.
Okay. So,
oh, we said something mildly negative about Bendis, so Connor chimed right in.
Jumped right in, yeah.
Hey, I wasn't actually that negative. I was just questioning.
Okay. To Lois Lane, because I want to get through these, so I want to wrap up. But because I have a lot to say about this issue. So, I got to ask you guys, where this goes and what it does with the multiverse stuff, do you feel like it's taken away from Lois's focus on the book?
Yes.
Okay.
I like everything that this does with the multiverse. Let me just put that out there. I like all of that stuff. But this is not the book I was promised for those first 3 or 4, 5 issues of the run. Where it was all about, Lois, the journalism, what it means, the story. And then by the end, it's like, I mean, they've tried to kind of bring it back in here at the end, but I don't think it really lands as well as it should, because we've just spent 3 issues, 4 issues doing all the other stuff entirely with
I mean, it's kind of like it ends 2 stories, because we have like the big ending to the journalist side is her, everyone goes quiet as she walks into the Daily Planet, and she has that scene with Perry, and you get some of the media reactions to what was revealed, and it feels very political. It feels like it's paralleling a lot of real world events. And then you have the TV interview, which talks about her book, and her book, which has been written, and Bendis has been talking about her writing this book for ages, and it turns out the book she's been writing has been about the multiverse and about parallel universes, and how some people do have faint memories of an alternate life, and how to sort of deal with that process and stuff, which I think is a really interesting concept. Now, I don't know if I necessarily disagree that maybe having them both be smashed together like this
I think it feels like it should have been 2 6-issue arcs rather than one big 12-issue story.
Yeah, I could see that. Because I actually like both stories. I actually really enjoy both stories. So, and I enjoyed the stuff because when they're getting the final bit of evidence they need for her story, Montoya and Alicia are in Kadim, I think, was it?
Yeah, Kadim.
Yeah.
No, they're
Chechnya.
Yeah.
Chechnya, there you go.
Chechnya, not Kadim.
Kadim
was in Batman the Outsiders.
Yeah, I knew it was in. I knew it was a comic this week with Kadim.
Yeah.
I wasn't just pulling that out of my ass.
Yeah. No, I know.
So they, they're in this sort of, they're having this kind of fun relationship bonding as like they're in a gunfight, and it was fun stuff. I think this issue is full of enjoyable moments. It's kind of a weird final issue to this book because of what we've already said about it feeling like 2 different stories put together. So it's kind of this weird thing where I'm really glad this book existed, and I really liked reading all the issues of it. But it's kind of a clunky.
Once you get to the end, you could see how you'd rather edit it into a slightly different format and get a better end product right?
Yeah. I wonder. Yeah, I would love to hear Rucka's reasoning for how this book was structured and how it's kind of smashed these two stories together. Because, like you say, it could have just been, Lois. You could have, Lois Lane 1 through 6 could have been the journalist stuff, and then you could have had a second arc, like a sequel called Lois Lane: Kiss of Death.
Kiss of Death.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where I feel that I've seen some criticism online that this got so away from Lois as a journalist, and I'm like, well, we haven't really had that since her dad died, right? So it really is like 2 6-issue arcs.
But that's the problem, is the first arc didn't have a conclusion. It just paused because we got interrupted by the Kiss of Death stuff and did all of that, and then smashed the conclusion to that first arc in here with the conclusion to the second arc at the same time.
But I also think tying Lois to kind of current events doesn't make it that definitive Lois story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't hand this to someone now and go, this is the Lois story to make
right.
someone understand.
Yeah,
and I don't think you could do it even before the Kiss of Death stuff. I just think it was Rucka had a lot on his mind, because he would do this in Lazarus as well. But in Lazarus, he would keep it towards the back matter.
It's tied.
He had an outlet for it.
It's tied to too much stuff even from the get-go, because I think if you wanted this to be Lois's Harleen, and not necessarily as an origin, I'm not saying set like at the start of her career, I just mean, like, okay, as long as you have a basic understanding of Superman, and that, okay, Lois is, either married or not, but you have a basic understanding of what Lois's role is in Superman's world, okay, you can hand this story to anyone and say, here's your standalone Lois Lane story that's a really good journalist
Batman
story.
Or Superman stories that I just, you go, right, okay, what can you hand someone and go, this is a good Batman story that anyone can just be your first Batman story, or Superman. Mm-hmm. And the first few issues felt like it could have been that Lois story. I think once we got to dealing with Superman, revealing his identity, I think it kind of lost that element of this could have been someone's first Lois book.
It's too in continuity, yeah. It's an continuity book.
And that's my take on it, and I can understand where people would think that, but at the same time, I'm looking at this as for what it is, and to me, Lois is the curator of the DCU, right? We see a lot of stuff through her perspective, not just being married to Superman, but being the preeminent reporter. So the fact now that we're getting her involved with the weird multiversal stuff with Renee and Kiss of Death, and what that means for trauma and going forward, is that this is all stuff that we have to live with, right? It almost ties into what Bendis was doing with Bart. And I think it helps too that I read these back to back, and that, yes, if this is what we're doing, if DC's doing with the multiverse, is like, yeah, all of this stuff happened, and our people and our characters remember it, but it's not exactly their origins, right? It's something that gets echoed. I like that Lois is the one that brings attention to that, because she is our kind of viewpoint to, the DC universe as the human, she's not a member of the JLA, but she hangs out with them, right?
I think that's why I go back to it. It feels like 2 arcs. Is I like that story. I like Lois being the one having that story. I just wish we'd finished off the first arc before we did this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still want more. I'll take a sequel series to this, but I think going back to the point about being able to hand someone the story, though, I feel like she's not the only DC character that has that problem. Like, I think even some of the bigger characters have that problem. I don't think there's a Flash story you can hand. I think all the Flash stuff that's great is all big runs. I don't think there's like a single Flash trade where you can go, here's a Flash story that will get you into the Flash.
Yeah, like I love Blitz.
Maybe slightly.
No. I will not have you say that doesn't work entirely on its own. As this is, here you go, here's a story on its own.
I mean, it does, but I mean, it's all in flashback with him being a kid, so I don't necessarily think it works in the same way that a lot of the other books we're talking about do. I don't think it does. I think it works in the context of if reading all of Wally's story. Even Green Lantern, I think for the most part, I mean, Secret Origin works to a point, but even that's supposed to be read in the middle of the arc. It's not, or the middle of the run. Sorry,
the Hector Hammond stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I was gonna say about Johns' Flash run is I love Blitz. It's one of my favorite Flash stories of all time. You can't read Blitz without reading up to that point, though, because so much of it is entwined to Hunter Zolomon and his wife.
To the point, Matt, where in my head, like, I mean, obviously if I reread it, I'd be able to do this more confidently. But I actually can't separate a lot. I mean, I love Wally's Flash run, or Johns' Wally Flash run. I mean, I can't separate most of those stories in my head. They all just kind of blend together as one big run to me.
And same with his Green Lantern, or even if we bring it to more modern
I think
stuff,
his Green Lantern
Batman.
breaks up a lot more definitively in your head. Structurally, I'm not saying you can like hand someone your Blackest Night and go, here you go. But I think it's a lot clearer in breaking up its parts as a reader.
But I would say
Mike.
At the very least, like Green Lantern like builds to Blackest Night, and then you've got post Blackest Night, so there's at least a big split point in the middle where you
there
get
is.
as a before and after.
And I do agree with you that not every character has something that you can hand them, but this book when it started felt like it was going to be that, and that's exciting in its own right. You know, it was because every character should have one of those books.
Right, and that's where I try to look at stuff for what it is and not what it should be when it comes to stuff like this. And I mean, this is one of my favorite books every time it came out. But I also don't know if it's my continuity bias, right? I love when they do stuff with continuity, and I love that this is Rucka trying to streamline, Renee's version of the question, which he's instrumental in creating, right? Because I went back and read the in between these two issues, I went and read the Books of the Blood or the 5, whatever that was, that introduced Alicia.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a fine book, but it really requires you to know what had happened to lead up. But this almost caps off that stuff as well. So I feel like what he did with his Wonder Woman, where that was playing with pieces that he had done with before, this was the same. And I could understand the criticism. This went from a Lois book to a Renee book. And I fully understand that criticism there, but again, I can't separate it to the,
For me, it's just ultimately how it's less than all its parts. Like, it's like I'm building a flat pack chair. All the pieces are really nice. They're nice wood, whatever. And, I'm putting them all together and each issue is, one of these pieces. And I get to the end and it's like, it's kind of missing a support beam and it kind of just crumbles a little bit if you look at it too hard. It's kind of how I feel about this series as a whole, where individually, all really, really nice work.
Yeah, someone that's fallen through quite a few chairs. I fully get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really enjoyed this, and when they released the, the big deluxe trade, I'm gonna have it for my shelf. Not that I'm gonna lend it out, but again, I love Rucka. I love what he does in this, But yeah, no, it does feel like a capper to his DC work before New 52, like, yeah.
Yeah, it got a little bit self-referential almost. It got to a point where, again, the first few issues felt really, even us who are, read the vast majority of all the stuff since at least the New 52, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of mainline continuity, like we're at least that far. We're kind of on board with most things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to this, and I'm like, man, this is going back over a decade, pulling on threads of stuff that I've just not read. And there were points, I think, even the last couple of issues that we spoke about how I get the context of this moment being a big moment and a big reveal because of what it's doing and the way it's framed, and that was a testament to the art that can manage that. But I definitely felt like I was lacking some of the context and the enjoyment that this should have had because of that. And I definitely felt that once you're referencing books over a decade old, when you're halfway through a series, of this series, when you start introducing things, it feels a little bit bait and switchy. Like, hey, we got people on board feeling like they are. This is new reader friendly. We've got you all now, and then never mind.
And so again, I do understand that criticism, and it's it's valid, but it doesn't bother me as much. I'm enjoying where it's coming from because that's exactly my kind of jam, and that
I get that appeals to some people. It's one thing to say, oh well, this stopped being a Lois book you can hand to anyone as their first Lois book because it's so tied up in current continuity. That's one thing entirely because okay, well at least when we're reading this monthly as we are now, the expectation is we're aware of current continuity at least. So it's fine. It's when it's referencing things from so far back, like 2 reboots ago, that it's like, well, okay, hang on, take a step back.
I like being introduced to a lot of like weird, wacky stuff that I don't get right away. It's one of those things you have to deal with when you start getting into comic books. When you start venturing out of those standalone stories that you can hand to people, and you get things referenced, you hear about things. and it doesn't happen as often as it used to. Although that said, comics surprised me with just how often it still happens. You think after reading for over a decade, it may not happen too much, but it still does fairly frequently, to be honest. They'll whip out some weird character from some run.
There's always blind spots.
And I'll be like, oh, what the hell is this thing? And I think, Rucka maybe wanting to give a capper to a lot of his DC work in this form is kind of interesting. It's maybe a bit personal, and maybe, as for people who have read some of that stuff or care about his work in DC. But
I'd be more on board with it if it was upfront with that's what it was going to be from the start.
Yeah, but then you don't have the surprise though. Like, I mean, imagine the surprise of like some of these characters showing up.
See, this is the thing. I don't even want like specifics, but just if at the start they'd even in like interviews at least they talk about how this is capping off like all elements of all my history at DC, things like that. It's gonna have these thematic callbacks. I'd have appreciated that at least. I think.
I don't know.
But I do think that would give it away a bit. Like if we knew this was gonna be Renee and Sister Mercy and Jessica Midnight. You know what I mean? The only person that's really missing is Sasha Bordeaux. So like maybe he's got that up his sleeve. I don't know. But
I'm okay with being lied to for a bit to make a surprise work.
Because we're fine with getting worked, Pete. That's part of enjoying one of the art forms.
I was lied to in the sense of, okay, this is what this book is. This is what I'm giving it my money every month. And then, actually, we're actually doing something completely different. But we've kind of got you on board now, so we'll keep taking your money. And it's not until like, well, we're almost at the end now, so I'm here. And it's kind of frustrating in that sense. That's where I feel that the lies and the expectation has an impact on. Okay, if I'd known from the start that that's what this story was, and it was going to be calling back to all this stuff, I might not have read it from the start because I'd be like, okay, well, I'd rather not have read the capper to Rucka's runs without reading most of that prior stuff.
I thoroughly enjoyed the adventure this went on, and I was, as much as I liked the journalism stuff in the beginning, I can see how Rucka got away from it because maybe tying her to the current events at the time, it adds a date stamp on the book where you kind of want Lois to not be ageless, but you want to be able to tell a story that can take place at any time, and tying it to 2019 2020, maybe he was just upset with stuff that he was going through and he had used Lois as a megaphone for that, you know what I mean? But this for what it did, and how Lois comes from, the fact that she has a teenage son and whatnot that was born in between realms, like I don't know. I think Rucka did the best with what he could. I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Connor?
I give it a 7.
Yeah, I'm giving it an 8. There you go. All right. So that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorites of the week, do our favorite panel/moment of the week. We do our favorite cover, best art, and then pick our top 5 books. So Matt, what is your favorite panel/moment?
So who should I get picked from? There's the awesome Hawk woman that I feel like Connor's gonna pick out. So I won't go with that one, but I'll have Crypto running to John, and Dead Earth.
Sure, no, I can see that. What's funny about that is that I never pay attention when you're talking about Hawkman. So whenever you're picking like a moment from Hawkman at the end of the episode, you say something, I'm like, what are you talking about? What's this nonsense? I don't remember this. Connor, what's your moment?
I will take the moment from Hawkman. I think that full page of her.
It's pretty good.
It was, as I kind of knew as I turned the page on, like, I read that before Dead Earth. I was like, that's already like in my head a contender for moment of the week, and I don't usually have that when I'm reading. Like I usually don't even think about it, and I get to this part of the show and go, oh shit, quick. But this one, as I was reading it, I was like, oh boy, I'm logging that one down. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't have like a quick answer for this one this week. I feel like my instinct is to say something from Dead Planet because it's the book I enjoyed the most. But I guess probably the gut punch of the full page of Wonder Woman ripping Ollie apart. Yeah, that hit hard. Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah. Best cover, I'll start off. I'll probably go with DCeased as well. I'm going specifically though with the Blade Runner variant cover.
Of course.
That's very nice. That was one of my 3 contenders.
Yep. Connor?
Well, it was that, the Lois Lane variant, or honestly just the regular Justice League cover. I really like that. I might go with that one.
Sure.
I gotta see what the Lois variant looks like now.
It's Amanda Connor one.
Yeah.
What's your pick, Matt?
That's I'm looking as of right now. Before I finally got to look at since we switched over to the other site and they don't have them all listed. I don't know. The Superman one looks pretty cool. I don't know who that was, but it's got lightning coming down. But I'm checking the Hawkman one because actually it's gonna be the Hawkman one.
Yeah, those are pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah. So my
variant.
The variant. I'm sorry. It's Carter and Shara in full warrior mode. Looks like there's blood spatter on there. I'm trying to pull up who did this one.
Zafino.
There we go. Yeah. That was pretty damn good.
Carter, best start of the week.
Hawkman.
Matt?
Hey, weird. I'm gonna say the same. Hawkman.
Yeah, I am not, because I didn't read Hawkman. I am going to go with Dexter Soy on Batman The Outsiders. Because that was really good. All right, Matt, top 5 books of the week.
Top 5. So number 1's going to be Hawkman. Number 2 is going to be Dead Earth. Number 3, I'm trying to go through these because it's been a while. So number 3 is going to be Superman. Number 4 is Batman The Outsiders. And 5 is Lois Lane.
Connor?
Hawkman, Dead Planet, Justice League, Batman, Lois Lane.
This is kind of a weird week, actually, because I feel like I had a lot in the 7 range. Like, there was a lot of not bad things, but lots of not great things.
That's what mine was. Out of my 5, 3 of them were 7s or 7.5s.
But let's see what I can do here. So, number 1 for me, DCeased Dead Planet. Number 2, Superman. Number 3, Lois Lane. Number 4, Batman The Outsiders. Number 5, Batman. Yeah, I go with that. So, yeah, kind of it's like a lot of books, but there was a lot of just okay books overall. You know, stuff like Justice League, stuff like a kind of a weaker issue of Young Justice.
I didn't have anything bad, at least, on my stuff.
No, that did I, but it
wasn't bad. It was upsetting. It was like disappointing.
It just wasn't. There wasn't a lot of enthusiasm for a lot of the books. It was a lot of just kind of okay stuff. Not everything, of course, but a lot of them. So here's hoping next week can give us some bigger punches. You know. So what is coming next week, you might ask? Well, lucky for you, I can here to tell you. Nightwing 72 is out. Justice League 49. We're already at a dollar Justice League issue? That's so weird.
Yeah.
So we got Aquaman 61, Teen Titans 43, Strange Adventures number 3, Dark Knight's Death Metal number 2. So, I mean, those last 2 are clearly going to be the 2 highlights of the talking next week.
Yeah.
Got Catwoman 23, Jimmy Olsen number 12, so that's wrapping up. Daphne Byrne number 6 is out, Metal Men 8, and then that's pretty much it. So, yeah, quieter week overall for us. In terms of what we're covering, there's definitely a lot less books being covered, but we're probably going to have solicits, and I imagine Strange Adventures and Death Metal will probably be 2 pretty meaty conversations. So I wouldn't worry about next week's show suffering in terms of the amount of content we've got for you. So
talk me out of reading Nightwing.
Why would you even be considering it?
Joker War tie-in. Dick Grayson has learned the truth that fixing his identity. That's why. I won't even finish it, but that's yeah.
Look, we know he's coming back in the whatever book it was that it was solicited. I think it was Batman, and not in his own book. So why bother?
I have to admit, Matt, I'm mildly tempted.
Yeah, right. You're gonna fix my
What is
boy.
wrong with you people? Matt's just earlier this very episode was any excuse I've got not to read more books. I'm going to take it. And so
On a
read
busy
Justice League.
week, you're missing an addendum.
Yes. Besides, we all know Matt is a hypocrite whenever he says anything about cutting books and reading less.
It's true. That's why he came back to Flash after like 3 issues.
Twice.
Yeah,
He did it twice.
self-control.
He came back twice. So, yeah.
I do have integrity. I just wanted to let that know. Don't let it think that I don't have one of the three eyes, because I do.
Plus, he's a big Punchline fan, and Punchline's on the cover. So
yeah, you got to get that Punchline.
yeah,
she's the new Harley Quinn. Did you guys know that?
she very much is not. Actually, I think you'll find
That's not what people in my comic book store have said that I overheard. People are frustrating.
Alexis K, Alexis K is the character's like Punchline's actual name, which I only know that because I clicked on Nightwing to read the description and it says characters at the bottom. It says Alexis K next to her. I was like, why not just say Punchline? But okay, now I know her real name. Which I'm sure was in that book. They had the origin of her, but I can't remember it.
Huh.
But hey,
I'm seeing if there's a pun there, and I don't think there is.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't see one. Nothing obvious, at least.
No.
All right. So that's coming next time then on the show. I don't know why I started so much there, the word show, but you know, it's because I was getting something up on the computer and I was talking whilst doing something can be difficult at times. So, that has been episode 209 of Comics from the Multiverse. I hope you're happy to have us back, and look forward to big discussions next week and everything coming up with Death Metal and whatever else we're doing soon that's exciting from DC. Did that whole Michael Keaton thing happen in between? Did we not ever talk about that? Yeah, I don't want to talk about it now. I thought I'll mention it. The first Flash movie should not be a Flashpoint movie. The end. So that's the extent of my thoughts. So yes, I will thank. What's up, Matt?
No, just that whole thing. I'm over that. Like, I don't know. I did watch a movie with Andy Samberg that involved multiverses, and give him Booster Gold, please.
It's real good, that movie, Palm Springs.
Yeah, it is real good. It was. I'm glad that you pointed out it was finally up somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah, but anyways, that's the extent of the DC Comics knowledge I want right now for the movies. Oh, by the way, I'm enjoying Doom Patrol.
Yes.
Me and Connor had like a side bet type thing via Twitter. He watched Forgetting Sarah Marshall finally, and I watched the first 2 episodes of Doom Patrol. Made the mistake of getting my wife involved, so now I have to wait for her. So I've only watched 8 episodes. I'm going to 9. But that means I can enjoy them more.
Yes.
But yes, it is delivered on the hype.
Yes.
So.
Me and Cara have been reviewing the new episodes of Doom Patrol. You can find that on the YouTube page or on the almost cancelled podcast feed, just in case you cared about that. Along with Stargirl, which is also going on right now. So yeah, I'll take this time to thank our Patreon producers. So thank you to Alison M. Fordyce, Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, and Zammer Jammer. They're all $20 patrons are up. You can, of course, support us for as little as $1 per month over in patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble. At the $5 tier, you get early access to all the Multiverse episodes, and you get to vote occasionally on the previously stuff whenever we have to, put in one of the Patreon slots and change the book. But you can go do that. You can also support us for free by simply liking the video on YouTube. Liking is super important on YouTube. It lets the algorithm know that we're worth recommending out, so that helps us out a lot. You can also please comment and let us know what you thought of any of the books. Of course, check out the Comics from the Multiverse Twitter as well, or the Twitter. Well, the Twitter too, at DC Comics Podcast. But I meant to say YouTube channel, where the individual sort of co-op version of the show goes up, as well as all the previously co-op episodes of all the book reviews. So you can find them in playlists. So over time, there'll eventually be a playlist of just the Batman reviews that you can sort of go through if you want, and so on. But yeah, that is pretty much everything I have to tell you about. Otherwise, just keep reading DC Comics and keep active on Twitter, and we love hearing from you. And there's been a couple of questions actually on Twitter and whatnot, which we'll save up for next time we have a quiet episode, or there's a reason we need questions.
Yeah.
But so yeah, hopefully you're glad to have us back after one long week away, and thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.